Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Issei time travel in past and make Raynare his wife and harem with all part 1. Before I start, please do support for more awesome content, and subscribe my channel and like this video. Go support and follow the DanzyDanz for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story. Link in the description. Let's start this video. When they first met, it had been terribly dark. It was so pitch black that Issei couldn't help himself from taking a page out of the creator's book and declaring, "Let there be light." And lo and behold, there was light. The inky abyss surrounding him surrendered to the power of imagination and his mastery over dreams, courtesy of a certain colossal dragon. It didn't require more than a dash of imagination. After all, this rendezvous occurred within the confines of his own mind. The bleak, suffocating void was swiftly replaced by a sprawling grassy field. It resembled the kind of serene, picturesque landscape where children might roll down hills with reckless abandon, much to the chagrin of their mothers. And husbands, often equally adventurous, would join the fun, swiftly earning their wives' disapproval. Or perhaps the roles would reverse, with women indulging in the thrill, trying to balance out the antics of foolish men like Issei. But they all knew deep down that they couldn't help but love these lovable idiots, including Issei himself. Although, in hindsight, he couldn't deny that his girls had engaged in more foolhardy antics than he ever did during his younger, clueless days. And somehow, they always managed to blame it on him. Two reptilian emerald eyes blinked open, irritated by the sudden onslaught of brightness. As the crimson-scaled dragon took in the newfound surroundings, his eyes widened in surprise as instead of the oppressive darkness, a vibrant meadow now stretched before him. "Who?" Draig began, his massive scaly body towering over Issei. He surveyed the horizon before eventually fixing his gaze upon his partner, who was perched casually on the soft grass. "You." Though his facial muscles were far inferior to humanoids and the like, Issei could tell his not yet loyal companion was raising an eyebrow at him. "Me," he replied, throwing in an obligatory hand wave. "Surprise," he added, offering a nonchalant wave. The Crimson Dragon Emperor bent down, his body now on all fours as he scrutinized Issei up close. In terms of appearance, nothing seemed amiss. Before him stood the same 18-year-old boy with unruly brown hair. Yet Draig sensed that something was off. "You," he remarked, raising an invisible reptilian eyebrow in skepticism. "Me," Issei responded, still unruffled as he took a seat on the plush grass. Me. Unless Draig was dreaming himself, then there shouldn't be any human out there who could stand before a dragon the size of a skyscraper and hail them like he was just a sentient gecko on the wall. No, this boy wasn't high to Issei. His host shouldn't possess enough power, or the will, or even the insight to be aware of the presence trapped within his soul, let alone summoning him to a meeting. "You're not him," Draig declared, a hint of suspicion in his voice. "But I am," said the human, reclining comfortably on the grass. "It's still me." "Hiya to Issei." Draig was unimpressed by Issei's easygoing demeanor. It was almost as if he were dealing with an entirely different person wearing his host's skin. Issei leaned back, propping himself up on his elbows. "I promise I'm not lying. You could ask, well, I'm not entirely sure who you can ask right now. Ophis, maybe? Or Great Red. Not sure if they'd remember me here, though." A pair of draconic emerald eyes widened in astonishment. "Ophis, the Ouroboros dragon? And Great Red? Yeah. How did you even know their names? Just yesterday you were fooling around in your school as per the ordinary, doing nothing good with your two idiotic accomplices." "Hey, don't talk smack about my buddies," Issei interrupted, conjuring an imaginary pebble and tossing it at Draig's massive head, causing the rock to bounce off harmlessly. "I know they're idiots, but they're my idiots." Draig's eyes narrowed with suspicion. "You clearly know something I don't." Issei chuckled, his tone playful. "And that's what's bugging you, isn't it, Drakey? Want to know something else? I also know that in dragon years, you're still a wee baby." Draig spluttered in disbelief. How did you know? Who supplied you with this information?" "You did, dingus," Issei replied, his smirk turning to a smile. There was something strange about that smile. Felt too familiar. All too warm and genuine to be faked. "Probably about some time within the next year. Hopefully we can lessen that into a month. I really could use a pal. Honestly, I feel my sanity's slippin'." Draig blinked, utterly perplexed, and slowly sat down like a bewildered dog on its hind legs. He didn't fully trust this Issei yet, but he was willing to listen, because like it or not, he was stuck with whoever this Issei poser was. "What else do you know?" he prodded. "Convince me that you're from where I think you are." "Well, yes, I'm essentially my future self coming back to myself," he mumbled. "But fine. I know that you accidentally melted Tiamat's golden goose egg at one point when you and your equally simple-minded rival couldn't stop fighting like a married couple who can't get enough of each other despite hating each other to the bone. Draig bristled, ready to unleash his fiery wrath. You dare to insult a dragon emperor? He raised his entire body, casting an imposing shadow over his host, who remained unfazed and shot him an annoyed look. Draig had to do a double take and suddenly felt a bit nervous despite Issei's size being only a fraction of his. A dragon emperor who didn't know better, Issei said calmly but not lacking a mild temper underneath, almost like a father lecturing his unruly child. And yes, I do dare. It's in my middle name. Now sit back down, scaly boy, and reflect on your past deeds. Consider the havoc you wreaked upon the underworld. Consider how you've effectively halved their population and then some. Draig reluctantly lowered himself on all fours again. But we were. Issei cut him off firmly. No excuses. I don't care who you were or are. You too ended the lives of countless fathers, mothers, sons, and daughters. Were those lives nothing more than an afterthought to you? Did you not care as long as you got to duke it out with the white boy? But he's my eternal Riva. You have a rival, great. But that's your rival. Why did everyone in hell have to suffer because you two wanted to punch each other into oblivion? How did you justify your duel as a license to murder everyone else? They interfered our bat. They were at war. Issei threw his hands out of frustration. You think God could just hit pause and tell everyone to look, let's chill out for a bit? Or the Satans just walk up to the Grigori generals and negotiate another date for the battle or just count it as a stalemate? Well, now I'm imprisoned. Draig never cried, but in that moment, he felt like he wanted to. None of his previous hosts had ever addressed his past actions like this, let alone scolded him for them. That was in the past. What's your problem with it? Everything. Draig was taken aback. That's not reasonable. Yeah, right? As if what you did was reasonable to start with. Issei met his gaze firmly. Look, without giving away too much about your future, let's just say that the mess you caused back then led to major, capital P problems for not only the three major factions but also for everyone else who had no part in it. It makes Akino's depressing childhood and severe daddy issues seem like a sitcom in comparison. Draig cocked his head to the right, his curiosity piqued. Akino? The smiling devil? She's not the point, Issei responded, his tone growing more earnest. The point is you and Albion wrecking so much shit that God died. HRM, which God? The bearded one. The God of heaven. Whatever. You know who I meant. The dream world trembled as Draig bellowed. The Abrahamic God? Dead? Dude, easy down, you're causing a tremor in my head. I'm not that smart. What if my brain gets leaky? He's dead? Draig once again shouted, baffled. Then how will I ever get out of this cage? Is my soul forever sealed? Look, we'll get to that later, alright? I promise. I swear. Now chill down a little, seriously. I know you're a baby and all, but you're still a dragon. Where's that pride of yours, huh? Draig went silent for a minute, calming himself down. How did you know about that? Kokobil dropped that bombshell. Look, I'll fill you in later. But anyway, right now, you and I have more urgent matters to discuss. We've got a jam-packed future, my reptilian friend. I'm not a reptile. Details. Issei waved his hand dismissively. We've got charity galas to crash, citizens to rescue, and an endless parade of generic evil organizations, Murder LLC, to thwart. Honestly, it's like they have a subscription service for evil. Sounds fun, huh? Well, it was so fun that I wanted to kill myself. Suddenly, the youthful boy before him seemed to age a decade in a heartbeat. He sprawled out on the grass, staring at the imaginary blue skies with frustration etched across his face. Draig observed his annoyance, too genuine to be faked. If you know all that, then I suppose you really are from the future because I can't come up with any other reasonable explanation for it. Issei sighed, deflating like a punctured beach ball. I swear, man. It's really me. You're one of the few I really need to convince. He knew his draconic companion could be a bit thick in the head sometimes, but boy if it didn't grind his gears. Then again, he wouldn't be called the boobies dragon emperor if it wasn't for him, so Issei counted it as even. Look! Issei restarted. I'm sorry in advance. I'm not always prickly like this, I swear. I'm just fed up with things. Self-hate and all that jazz. We went through a lot, more than I asked. I stopped knowing if I was doing the right thing anymore. That's how messed up I am. Draig mulled over the situation, gazing at his host's determined expression. It was an expression that seemed too mature for an 18-year-old. I was never on the receiving end of a scolding like this, he admitted. But strangely enough, I believe you. Still, I'd like to hear how you managed to leap back in time. Ah, yes, the burning question, Issei replied, leaning in with a mischievous glint in his eye. But before we dive into the complexities of temporal shenanigans, we've got to address our long-distance relationship, buddy. Draig blinked, clearly caught off guard. Our relationship? Issei chuckled. I mean, who else can I chat with when you're the only dragon on speed dial? We're practically stuck together, so we might as well be friends, right? The heavenly dragon seemed to be considering this newfound friendship when Issei continued, now, about the time travel gig. You see, in my timeline, everything's been wiped clean. It's like we hit the cosmic reset button. Stuff that hasn't happened yet or that I managed to change just poof, gone. As for proof, Ophis and Great Red were my go-to time travel consultants, so go ask them. Draig's curiosity was piqued. We reacquainted with them? Issei winked. Well, not exactly regular pen pals, but we've exchanged a few words. I can't imagine those conversations being dull. Oh, you have no idea. It's like trying to have a calm chat with a hurricane and a supernova. But hey, at least they're reliable when it comes to timey-wimey stuff. Draig couldn't help but crack a smile. So why did you decide to grace us with your presence, future boy? Issei shot an annoyed glance. Hey, I'm getting to it. Grew some temper, didn't you? Draig noted, raising an eyebrow. Issei was momentarily taken aback, acutely aware of the anger issues he'd developed and carried with him. Yet evidently he conceded, his tone a mix of self-awareness and exasperation. The man with the appearance of a boy let out a sigh that only exhausted, overworked adults possess. Sorry about that. My brain's small, but I've got a lot of emotions, see? I promise I'll put on my big boy pants soon. You admitted your wrongs at the very least, Draig muttered, a hint of self-reflection in his tone. He was somewhat ashamed that he couldn't do the same. Look, but I had everything, but you were reveling in it as well. It was our glory, after all. Our name echoed from the realm of the dead to Asgard and Nirvana. People recognized us instantly, asking for photographs and autographs, telling us how much of an inspiration we were. Any chipped pieces of our armor were auctioned off to fund orphanages, but we felt like either of us had the time to just couldn't enjoy life anymore. Draig emitted a low rumbling sound as he contemplated. HRMM, did I ever realize it? Dude, you're my only confidant, and we're practically stuck together. Not even death did us part. Issei admitted, his voice tinged with vulnerability. You died? Yeah. Twice. I survived both times. Got lucky. Again, details. How far from the future are you? If our fame transcends even realms, then surely you would have a spouse or two and children. Course I did, Issei replied, his tone bitter. But I only get to see my wives and kids once a year if I'm lucky. Just once. Not to brag, but the entire world's become pretty dependent on us. With great power there must also come great responsibility. Issei wanted to punch Draig because of how many times he had heard of that bullshit adage. Draig noticed his stern stare. I may not be in a place to tell you that considering what I've done, but if not us, then who? Yeah, right, Issei scoffed. You know what I think of that. It's a great load of baloney crafted by folks who'd rather sit on their laurels than find alternatives to relying on. One guy who just wants to enjoy some family time. Yikes. Draig winced. How old were you again? I dunno. 23, probably. The dragon's eyes nearly fell off. 23? You're still that young and yet your bitterness exceeds that of an elder dragon? Hey man, show me another 23-year-old who has to battle evil gods, dragons, or brainwash sacred gear users on an hourly basis, Issei shot back. It might excite you, but even you got fed up. By the way, you were the one who pitched this whole time-traveling idea, just to set the record straight, though I'm the one that pulled the trigger. Fair point, Draig conceded, nodding. If a battle-hardened enthusiast like him was spewing such heresy, it was clear they were knee-deep in an epic crisis. Good, Issei nodded. Before I got sent back, I made some promises. Promises that we need to keep, because they're my words, and by extension, your obligation too. How am I included in your commitment? Issei raised an eyebrow and replied with a playful tone, Your future self was kind enough to agree on your behalf, so if you have any complaints, feel free to take it up with him. This would be a very trippy dream if Draig was dreaming all of it. Fine. Great. Awesome. Well, first off, once it's possible, we're grabbing Ophis. We keep her safe from being manipulated, and make her our friend. Issei declared confidently that Draig found it hard to doubt him. We'll surround her with good people who don't want to use her for ulterior motives. And believe it or not, that's the easy part. Very well. What would a great red request from us? Issei shook his head. Nah, that crimson rascal didn't ask for anything in return. He's just a laid-back, go-with-the-flow kind of dragon. Said whatever happens to him, happens? He's cool like that. Damn dragon just wants to be the coolest. But if not him, then who? You, Issei continued, his tone growing serious. I made a promise to the future you. Or I guess past you. I dunno. Whatever. But here's the million-dollar question. Do you really want to know? Draig took a thoughtful pause. Despite my curiosity, I think it's best you decide whether I'm ready for it. Classic Draig move, throwing it all back on me, Issei quipped, his grin returning. You must think you're pretty cool for that, huh? And no, that's not what I meant to do at all. Draig protested, a hint of embarrassment creeping into his draconic demeanor. Issei gave his partner an understanding smile. I know, buddy. I'm just messing with you. Draig felt a strange sensation tugging at the corner of his scaly cheek, something he couldn't quite attribute to dragon emotions. Who else did you make promises to? Your spouses, perhaps? His smile fell off his face, replaced quickly by a frown. No, they'd never allow it. I mentioned it as a joke to one of them during those brief moments we had together before we were off to deal with the world's mess. Her reaction? Well, it was like I told her I was filing for a divorce. In a way, she's not entirely wrong, I suppose. I see it must be a tough decision. A bold one, indeed, Draig remarked, his curiosity piqued. But isn't coming back to your past, in essence, a betrayal of the world you left behind? Someone once said better to betray the world than let it betray me, Issei retorted, his expression unapologetic. As Issei shifted his gaze to meet Draig's, the dragon was taken aback by the sight. Instead of regret or self-doubt, he saw a carefree smile, devoid of guilt, almost bordering on a smirk. It was the kind of expression that should have been weighed down by remorse. But Issei carried it effortlessly. The older I got, the more I regretted ever wanting to be a hero. I can't say if I've grown wiser, but I'm certainly getting older, Issei mused. I wanted a fresh start. Hit the reset button on my sanity. Living for the world felt like clinging to a palm tree on a sinking island, and every high tide that came along chipped away at it. I wasn't living for myself, Draig. We weren't living for ourselves. We became the world's janitors, tasked with cleaning up the mess everyone else couldn't handle. And you know what? The world can suck a fat one for that. With resolve in his eyes, Issei stood up and crossed his arms casually. Look, I know it's selfish. But it's not like I'm planning to go full-on villain mode. Sure, I might have left those people in that future hanging, but after everything I've done for them? I think it's fair to say they owe me this much. And despite how sociopathic I may sound right now, there's no way for me to go back anyway. That future's been erased for me, and these hands are the ones that did it. Issei wiggled his fingers, the same way he would if there were a pair of in front of him. Draig could only stare in contemplation, unable to find a suitable response. And don't you dare criticize me for it, Draig, Issei warned, his tone firm. You were right there with me, every step of the way. Right now, you might not be as disillusioned as I am, but I share my perspective with future you. It's a confusing mess, I know, but worrying too much about a future that's no longer in your control. Well, let's just say that's like trying to tame a fire-breathing chicken. Issei pressed on, recognizing the dragon's hesitation. You know, I could have just fed you some convenient lie about coming back from the future because everything went to hell, that the world just took a nosedive, plunged off a cliff, and we were left stuck in the pits with no ladder out. But that wouldn't be fair to you, Draig. You're the last soul in all these godforsaken worlds that I'd ever want to lie to, even out of necessity. Draig held him in silence. Never had he become this conflicted, but there was a first for everything. Even for dragons. And here's the kicker, Issei continued, his tone taking on a more introspective note. I'm weaker than a week-old kitten now, thanks to the old me who never participated in anything meaningful and wanked his days off while being a delusional garbage to society. Ha! A common ground, Issei snorted. And I'm going to need your help if we want to ensure that our future is better than the last one, for our sake and for everyone else we'll come to care about. Well, mostly for my sake, I'll be completely honest. I'm selfish like that, Draig snorted. You're the only one I can rely on, Draig. Without you, I'd probably be nothing more than a hopeless nobody or, worse yet, 6 feet under. So, here's the billion-dollar question for our lives. Are you in, or are you out? I'm in, Draig replied without hesitation. I had my worries that you might have turned, well, evil in a sense, but everything you've said rings true. Even if you were plotting world domination, there's not much I can do to stop you either way. Sacred gears, even a Longinus, are just tools. Most of your predecessors treated me as nothing more than that. I'm sure you've heard the stories. This is actually the first time you told me that, but sure. Yay us. Brothers for life. Oh, Draig's emerald eyes blinked in surprise, a touch embarrassed now. Well, I don't need your pity or anything. It's not like I cared about those old folks. They're just relics of history now. Rather, for the first time since you became my possessor, I'm actually looking forward to the future we'll shape together, partner. Hee, absolutely. We're going to be the bee's knees, the cat's pajamas, and everything in between, Issei exclaimed, punctuating his words with an okay hand sign and a cheeky grin. Now, about those promises. I made two with you. I won't reveal the crucial one since you made me swear to keep it, but there's another one. Draig tilted his colossal head to one side. And what might that be? I promise you that I'd never let anyone give you ridiculous nicknames like Dragon Emperor, Tita Dragon, or a paid Doragon for our Japanese fans and those foreign weebs who insist on using Japanese Ramaji just because they're weebs. Stop. What in the name of the damned are you blabbering about? Who dared to give me such demeaning titles? Well, the world did. Then the world will pay for this insult. Well, technically it hasn't happened yet, Issei pointed out, raising an eyebrow. Remember, this is the past for me, and it hasn't occurred in your timeline. Gradually, Draig's rage subsided as he realized the truth in Issei's words. But to think that someone would dare to insult me with such epithets, what could have possibly led to this affront? How could they tarnish my honor as the Crimson Dragon Emperor? I am the proud Welsh dragon. I don't think of nonsensical perversion. That's within Fafnir's territory. Not mine, Issei nodded, feigning empathy. I know, right? So embarrassing. It's almost as if you were hosted by some idiot whose life decisions were controlled by his. At that, Draig paused, slowly connecting the dots, and then it dawned on him. He had a very strong inkling that the perpetrator might be standing right in front of him. It couldn't have been you, right? Well, technically it's the past me who did it, so by my impeccable logic, I'm completely innocent. Unless, of course, I decide to follow in past me's footsteps and bestow upon you those delightful nicknames just to watch you squirm. Before they could delve any further into this bizarre conversation, their shared dream world was violently shaken. It felt as if an earthquake had barged in, threatening to disrupt their conversation. An all-powerful voice boomed through their surroundings. Wake up. Wake up. Sheesh, master, if you don't wake up, I'm going to give you a big, sloppy kiss. Hi to Issei. Issei, with an exaggerated gasp, suddenly glanced at an invisible watch. Oops. Would you look at the time? It's school o'clock. Sayagatagobi. Greya. And Draig's anguished roar echoed through the dream realm as Issei abruptly left him, casting the dragon back into the depths of his own soul, where he could do little but sit and contemplate his existence. Chapter 1. Before it all fell apart, Issei's newfound powerlessness hit him like a sack of magical bricks. No longer could he effortlessly contort steel with a mere flick of his fingers, soar through the skies with the grace of a majestic goose, or shoot colossal laser beams while yelling out absurd attack names. Even his night vision decided it had better things to do, leaving him feeling more like a mundane mortal than the larger-than-life hero he once was. But this was worth every bit of that loss. Regrets might sneak up on him later like a sneaky ninja, but dwelling on possible future bummers wasn't his style. He was living in the past, which had inexplicably become his present, and he had zero intentions of sulking about his own decisions. Sure, he developed a slight cynicism, but his core optimism remained unshaken, because, honestly, things could always get a hell of a lot worse. In the midst of the chaos, as he sprinted across the school's track field, a frenzied mob of Kendo girls hot on his heels, Issei couldn't help but burst into laughter. What the hell is wrong with you, Haida? Are you seriously laughing right now? On his right, the bald Matsuda yelled at him. Did they get you in the head? They say only a man who has lost everything can laugh in the face of certain death, Motohama philosophized, his breaths resembling an overheating steam engine. Oh, I've definitely lost everything, Issei replied with a grin, abruptly halting in his tracks, causing a dramatic cloud of dust to billow up from his screeching shoes. His two pals slowed their pace but didn't stop. Matsuda's eyes widened with realization. I see, you moron, why are you stopping? You don't have to do this, man. Motohama pleaded, realizing that Issei seemed determined to sacrifice himself to divert the rage of the Kendo girls. We can still get out of this mess if we stick together. There's no need for you to throw yourself under the rampaging Kendo girls' bus, my friends, Issei said with that enigmatic smile of his, the kind you'd expect from a character ready to make a heroic exit. Leave them to me. Live long and prosper, and remember my name. Tell my wife I love her. He raised his right hand, offering a confident thumbs up. I see, you lunatic. You don't even have a wife. Forget it, Matsuda. Motohama held his friend back, preventing him from rushing back to face the oncoming deluge of angry Kendo girls. This is his decision to make. We can't take it away from him. It just wouldn't be right. As the stampede grew larger in the horizon, the Baldy nodded sagaciously. You're right. We should bail. Matsuda dropped their dramatic act as he knew the danger was very, very imminent. He knew he wasn't planning to receive another hit to his family jewels. We won't forget this, I see. Next ramen is my treat. Believe it. Issei nodded with a triumphant smile and a glorious thumbs up, knowing his sacrifice wouldn't be in vain. Of course, he didn't just plan to ruin his future by having his balls broken by a wooden practice sword. As the sea of angry girls closed in, encircling him and dashing his hopes of escape, he focused on the task at hand. He might not be the powerhouse he once was, but his battle-hardened experience with mythological creatures gave him an edge even in his twig-like state. His body was yet to be strong, but his mind remained sharpened. So sharp it could cut positivity. Facing off against an entire battalion, however, seemed like a surefire way to land himself in the infirmary, effectively ruining the rest of his day. Ha ha, you're a brave man, Hayadu. The brunette captain of the Kendo team stepped forward, addressing Issei as she emerged from the girl mob. Speaking of bodies, Murayama, their captain, sported the most formidable pair of among the Kendo squad members. It was purely coincidental that she was their captain, of course. But don't think your bravery will save you from your punishment. What if I buy you lunch? We get free lunch. Ah, balls. Issei raised his empty palms, causing the girls to instinctively back away from him as if he were emitting reverse cooties. I'm here to negotiate the terms of my release. Terms of your release? You still think you can get away from this? How many times have you peeped on us? Probably more times than we've been caught, Issei quipped, and somehow, he managed to avoid expulsion, even under the strict rule of Sona Citri. Go figure. But hold on your horses. Before you swing those wooden swords, consider this. Why oh why are we risking our lives bi-weekly in the age of technology? We could just Google boobies and voila, unfiltered mommy milkers without the danger of getting clobbered. Murayama blinked, then pointed her wooden sword menacingly at him. Disgusting. Get to the point, Hayadu. What are you suggesting? The point is someone might be paying us. And might be paying us good money for a single picture, an amount of dosh that makes us consider our life is worth throwing away because we might be owing another person big money forcing us to become the way we are now, as three shameless perverts. Really? Murayama lowered her weapon, a concerned expression now on her face, as if contemplating the possibility that her classmate was ensnared in a web of debt. How much do you owe? Huh? Oh no. I said might. I was just making stuff up so my boys could get a head start before you come after them. Silence hung in the air like a dark cloud after a storm. His friend's sympathy vanished as quickly as it had appeared when confronted with Issei's honesty. All right then. Not only did you peep, but you also played with my feelings. Today is the day you'll regret being born, Hayadu Issei. Won't be the first, Issei shrugged. Do I get a last request? He asked, trying to buy himself some time as he surveyed the looming circle of angry girls. I'm not armed, and I really don't want to hurt anyone, because I can't hurt anyone. Fighting girls just doesn't seem right. Goes against the way of the samurai, you know. Yeah? And what do you think we should do? Just let you off scot-free? One of the girls in the back yapped. What surface? A valid point, to be honest. I can't believe I'm saying this, the captain grouched, but no matter how vile you are, sacrificing yourself for your friends is still a selfless act. Even coming from you. Sweet, Issei smiled. So I go. Mayumura-san? You stay. And it's Murayama. Issei's triumphant expression faded. Oh, we're still going to hit you, but I'll give you a chance. There's around 20 of us, but if you can endure everything I throw at you for 1 minute, we'll let you off this time. Oh, you can try to dodge, Murayama continued, but if you get hit just once, we'll continue with our previous punishment, beating you half to death. But Captain, no buts. He could have run, but he chose to retain whatever left of his dignity. It's only right to give him a chance. And have faith in me, I'm your captain, after all, the girls cheered. Of course, you're so cool, Captain, Issei added. Quiet, you. Zipping up, Issei breathed a sigh of relief. Thank goodness for Murayama's fondness for Bushido. Things could have taken a much darker turn. He might have ended up not just regretting being born but looking like a corpse too once they were done with him. Even if the defenseless is a perv? A girl with short pink hair spoke up. Kates, despite her kind personality, could deliver a mean swing when provoked, and she was quite bloodthirsty herself. Murayama, on the other hand, upheld her honor and principles with great conviction. Even if the defenseless is a perv, Murayama declared firmly, ending the debate, we'll each face him one-on-one. Kendo is a noble sport, not a gangbang. Heh. Gangbang, this one's the reverse one. And not in a good way, Issei muttered quietly, then noticed the girls glaring daggers at him. Sorry, I'll be quiet now. Murayama took charge, ordering the girls to create a circle to give them room. She pointed her wooden sword at Issei. No running away, Haidu. We're giving you a chance. Don't waste it by betraying us. Yep. I cross my heart. I might be a perv, but I ain't no. We'll see about that, Murayama muttered as she readied her sword, gripping the wooden weapon firmly. I'll be your first. Please be gentle with that hard stick. Murayama did not appreciate that innuendo. Issei prepared himself, adopting a self-defense stance with open palms at chest height, face exposed, and feet spaced apart. While he could have fought back and inflicted some serious damage with his counters, he knew this wasn't about overpowering them. This was to see if his body could keep up with his mind. And if not, to what extent. He couldn't hit as hard as his strength was pathetic, but dodging should still be in his area of expertise. Hot! Murayama launched a direct assault, stepping forward and thrusting her sword straight toward his nose, attempting to knock him out. An intention Issei was thankful for, since that would spare him from the rest of the girl's anger, but getting hit at first strike would defeat the point. So Issei took one step back and watched the white tip of the sword hang just inches from his nose. Taken aback, Murayama retracted her sword, straightening her posture. You've developed some good reflexes, Hayate, she muttered. Not many can dodge my first attack like that. You should be proud. Really? You sure you didn't just screw up? I take that back. Her movement, trained as she was easy to read. He just didn't have as much time to react as he was a human boy with the experience of a world guardian, a made-up title to make him feel good given by the world. Whatever that meant. Issei continued to evade Murayama's strikes as she swung horizontally from his right side. He bobbed and weaved like a skilled boxer, darting to the right to avoid her follow-up attack, a downward strike that hit nothing but air and grazed his bangs. Having faced opponents with fancier and deadlier swords in the past, Issei knew their glaring weakness. They couldn't do much when he got in close, so he pressed forward. Slowly, but surely, as he continued to dodge Murayama's swings, he made his way to her. Realizing this, the Kendo club captain mitigated his advance by stepping back. For each forward step he took, she took one step backward, some slightly to her left or right so she wouldn't be backed against the live wall. The 60 seconds were nearly over without Murayama ever landing a hit, and trying to regain distance to strike with her sword. Frustration and confusion started to settle, and her finesse was getting weakened by both fatigue and annoyance, and her white shirt became dusted with sand. Ha ha, she panted, taking a break from her assault to catch her breath. This wasn't going as planned. Issei's movements were efficient and economical, wasting no unnecessary energy. He looked remarkably fit, despite a bit of sweat on his cheek. This body isn't as half bad as I thought. That was splendidly done, partner. Draig complimented. Oh? You can talk to me like this again now? Sweet. I wonder if I can still mute you. Draig was muted. And unmuted. So you can sever our link already? I really wonder how capable you were before. Pretty heckin' strong, dude. One sneeze and an entire mountain is gone, Issei said, and Draig couldn't tell if it was a joke or a simple truth. Anyway, talk to you later. Shouting her kiai, essentially a battle cry term for Kendo, pumping herself up as if shouting it could make her strike harder or more accurately, Murayama leapt in, feinted, and aimed for another downward attack to his head. As she made her very linear slash, Issei shifted to his side and closed in on her like an oncoming train. The surprise charge was successful. His unexpected surge caught Murayama off guard, and she hastily retreated, losing her balance on the uneven ground and stumbling backward. But Issei managed to break her fall by grasping the wooden sword she still clutched tightly even as she lost her balance. Pulling it back, he then extended his free arm around her back, performing an impromptu tango dip, albeit with a wooden sword in place of a hand. Several audible gasps were made, and in Murayama's face of shock and bewilderment, and the creeping red-hot blush that was starting to conquer her cheeks, an image of Rias Gremery's blushing face instead occupied his mind. That would be nice. He did plan on redeeming himself for all the missed hints that were thrown at him during his early life as a reincarnated devil. How he could be denser than a black hole was merely due to his lack of confidence, and if given the chance, he wasn't going to break hearts this time by being a brainless dildo. Never. Not again. Hayade? On Murayama's part, her heart was trying to jump out of her chest, which didn't make sense to her. This must be because he was a man, yes. A boy. He was just a boy and nothing more, and she was only flustered because he was the opposite member of her sex, who was also a massive pervert. Yes, that's it. Nothing more. Absolutely nothing more. So why couldn't she maintain eye contact with him? Guess I failed, Issei said, sobering up and helping Murayama get back onto her feet and unhanding her sword without even thinking about it. His flash of sadness wasn't caught by anyone present. He kicked the ground in a very mature display of expressing his disappointment. Dang it, I was doing so well. Murayama stared at him, befuddled. The Kendo Club members exchanged silent glances, and Keitase finally spoke up, "See, Captain?" Without a noise, they realized the fact that their captain and leader was frozen in place, and face completely beet red was a very, very, very bad omen. And though they hated to admit it, his performance, and the glamorous finish was something some of the girls had sometimes daydreamed about. No one truly expected they would witness a live reenactment of their daydream, and be performed by the captain they adored and the pervert they despised. What? Quit staring at me like that and get on with it. It's never too late to develop masochism, I guess, Issei said, resigning to his fate as he closed his eyes. While it wasn't within his plan to be sent to the infirmary, he didn't mind making several adjustments if things didn't go as planned. A good plan is a flexible plan, as he believed, since that way the plan never truly fails, only different degrees of success. However, Murayama was quick to protest. I refuse to count that. That's not a swing I made, and you were holding me back from a fall. I refuse to accept a hollow victory. Yeah, well, I mean, he did dodge everything you threw at him for a whole minute, Keitase said quietly, not really wanting to be heard. But can't we take one hollow victory? Just once? Just this time? Yeah, Keitase-chan, that's not fair for him, a girl argued. And the rest started to back him. Are we going against Captain's words? I don't want to do that. But he's… As the girls bickered amongst themselves, Issei opened his eyes. He had stopped listening for quite a bit, and now wondering what the hell was the damn holdup. So am I staying or what? You can go, but the next time we catch you peeping again. Yeah, don't worry, he slinked past the girls who ruefully gave way. Won't get caught next time. Smell ya later, sword nerds. Why you? Before they could even think of chasing him again, Hayade Issei had executed his greatest escape yet. As he moved forward in the second, technically third, life, Issei contemplated whether it was considered a third life at all. He retained his memories and hadn't died or been hit by a truck. He didn't intend to completely reshape his future but rather explore the roads he hadn't taken while ensuring the results remained desirable. This was all about taking or avoiding responsibilities to make his future less packed with save-the-world missions. And if fate dared to try and mess with him, he swore to make her his bitch this time. Just like Raynare, who had been waiting for his arrival by the school gate, steadily losing her patience, unaware that she was on course to make the worst mistake of her life. Raynare. His legitimate first-ever non-2D crush that actually dated him. Their relationship was as genuine as a counterfeit Rolex. It involved deceit, a quick demise, and a complete lack of future prospects. Yet, in the brief moments they spent together, Issei felt a warmth he couldn't quite explain. Sure, it was all part of her plan to evaluate his worth before snuffing out his existence. But for a gullible guy like him, those moments felt real. His laughter was genuine, his awkwardness painfully so. He genuinely believed he was doing great on that faux date. But in reality, Issei was once just a gullible young man with an awfully optimistic outlook on life and a steadfast belief in more abstract concepts, like hope. When I was young, it seemed that life was so wonderful. A miracle. Oh, it was beautiful, magical. And all the birds in the trees, well, they'd be singing so happily. Oh, joyfully, oh, playfully watching me. But then they sent me away to teach me how to be sensible, logical, oh, responsible, practical. Then they showed me a world where I could be so dependable, oh, clinical, oh, intellectual, cynical. He had let his world fall to ruin to save theirs. Now it was his turn to rescue his world, all while ensuring his actions didn't inadvertently trigger another cataclysm. Not that he aspired to be a world savior anymore. The hero chapter of his life was firmly in the past. No, his motivation was much simpler. He didn't want to see his girls entangled in a world gone awry. After all, he yearned to spend quality time with them, not wait at home like a deadbeat husband while they were out carrying their duties and being responsible adults and such. The sudden, timid voice of "Will you go out with me?" shattered his thoughts, pulling him back to the present and the pressing matter at hand. Raynare. Killing her now was out of the question. Compared to her, he was a pathetic twig and she was a veritable weed whacker. Besides, revenge against her had grown stale, a pointless endeavor. More to that, her critical role in Asia's arrival and the expelled saint's tragic demise complicated matters. So, Issei needed to be exceedingly cautious to avoid drastically altering the future. He knew precisely how to utilize her to his advantage, get him to Azazel. The governor was a key player, the sanest of the major faction leaders, and conveniently, the only one who wasn't infatuated with none of his siblings, celestial or fallen. A strange coincidence indeed. Meeting Azazel early on would undoubtedly prove beneficial, especially considering the early incidents caused by his unruly cadre. And so, the plan begun with a rejection. No, Issei responded bluntly, his voice cutting through the tension. I'm so GLA, huh? What did you say? Still playing her facade, Yuma momentarily displayed a crack in her act. Confusion flickered across her innocent face, mirrored by the students lingering near the Co-Academy gates. I am sorry? His blunt refusal whipped conspiracies in a flash. Did Hayata just turn down that chick? Nanny the? Is he stupid? Well, I mean he is, but why guys know what I mean. Maybe one of the Kendo girls finally hit him so hard that he turned to the other team? Speculations ran amok, while Raynare teetered on the edge of embarrassment and bubbling rage. Issei, meanwhile, sported an imbecilic grin and explained his reason for shooting her down. We just met. Pretty sure, and what kind of girl wants to date a guy for no reason? Unless I'm being punked. He turned around dramatically, scanning the area, while raising a challenging fist and wagging it in the air. So where are the damn cameras? Huh, you guys think this is a funny prank, eh? Why, I'll show you funny once I put your face in the dirt. Yuma, or rather Raynare, blinked in disbelief. He was just being an idiot, she surmised. Of course, why would she expect anything more? Then again, why had Rias Gremory kept an eye on him all week? Surely, not because his perversion rivaled the most debauched fallen. There was something about him, a potential that needed to be unearthed. And in the name of her Lord Azazel, she was determined to reveal it by any means necessary. And no, she stammered, maintaining her act as the blushing maiden. It's not a prank. I promise I'd never do that to anyone, especially someone too like. Issei paused. Ah, you like me? Seriously? Why didn't you say that from the start? All right. Let's go, he agreed, not because of her adorableness, but because her act was nauseating to the point of inducing nausea. The younger version of him might have jumped for joy, but his tastes had evolved as he grew older. He longed for a sexy, scantily clad, long-legged fallen angel Penemu. The sooner Raynare vacated the premises, the better. Thank you? I'm so glad. He noticed the genuine sneer before it turned to a fake smile, and rolled on with it. Is there anywhere you want to go? Her fake smile contorted into a gaping jaw as Issei uttered a single sentence. Tell you what, there's this one particular hotel I've been dying to check out. Nearby students erupted into scandalized chatter, oblivious to the fact that the two main actors had eyes only for each other. The hotel he picked couldn't be any better. Not only was it in the fringes of the town and belonged to the Grigori, forcing those good little devils to stay clear, it also meant that killing him here wouldn't bat any eyes, and neither would entering the establishment in this form. She knew the guards of this place, and they knew better than to mess with her business. Please be gentle, Yuma murmured, lying on a rather lackluster bed. This love hotel was a regular haunt for fallen angels, and this wasn't her first time here with a human. However, it was her first time being led here by one. If she were lucky, she might even bump into Lord Azazel once this charade was over, considering he was the establishment's owner. Not that he was here often. He must be busy dealing with more important things. As surprised as she was, Raynare had half expected this outcome. After all, it was Issei they were talking about, and perhaps it was naive of her to think he would opt for a traditional, uninspired date. No, he had gone straight for the finale. She gave him credit for his directness. It was a daring move and an obvious indicator of why he had remained both single and oh well, she thought, it would all be over in 5 minutes tops. It wasn't the method she had hoped to employ to confirm his hidden power, but putting his dick in her was still the quickest and most efficient way to gauge a person's worth, in more ways than one. He went for her first. Typical. He didn't even bother to unbutton her uniform. She had, closing her eyes. She knew that guys liked to hear girls, and most of them were clueless about whether the sounds were genuine. Her S appeared to be working on Issei, who was steadily picking up his pace. Raynare could feel his nervous hands attempting to unbutton her uniform, fingers fumbling due to his excitement. In reality, Issei was doing everything he could to keep himself from bursting into laughter due to the sheer absurdity of her act. It was fortunate that her eyes were closed, or she would have noticed his internal struggle not to break character. After a few awkward moments, Raynare decided to lend a helping hand by removing her blazer and unbuttoning her shirt herself. Her face remained a beet-red facade of modesty, eyes still shut tight, while her mind played out a vivid scenario of impaling that cheeky Gremry brat with a light spear through the neck. She would make for a pretty crimson gift for Lord Azazel. Can you turn around, Yuma-chan? Again, Raynare mistook Issei's shaky voice for embarrassment, and offered a timid nod. Unbeknownst to her, Issei was clamping his lips together, not to stifle of passion but to prevent laughter from bubbling out. Yuma was undeniably pretty, with her glossy black hair and a charming smile. However, Issei knew what lay beneath that facade, and it was a libido killer of epic proportions. She felt him climb on top of her back, straddling her legs next to hers. It was an unexpected move, but Issei reasoned that everyone had their own peculiar tastes. Consequently, she responded with a restrained grunt. Issei gently brushed her hair aside, revealing the nape of her neck, a particular weakness for all fallen angels. Akino had imparted this tantalizing tidbit to him. She would melt like a candle whenever he caressed her neck and teased her nape. Clearly, it worked just as well on Raynare. With one subtle bite, Issei managed to stifle a squeal from her lips, and this time, it wasn't faked. Yet Issei couldn't help but feel slightly disturbed. The faint scent of lavender was all too familiar to his nose. Was this a common perfume among fallen angels? Akino wore the same fragrance every time she initiated amorous encounters, which, frankly, was just about every time they met 3 days per year, give or take a few more. What the? Her mind raced as her eyes widened in astonishment. Before she could berate herself for making that pitiful noise, the boy had already leaned in for another nip, kneading her tense back and sending waves of unholy rippling through her body. It was impossible for a mere human boy to create such sensations without prior experience. Fallen angels were creatures driven by desires, which could either empower them or render them incredibly weak. Right now, horniness had reduced her to the latter, and with every crude kiss he planted on her defenseless neck, her strength waned while her breath grew hotter and more ragged. Her loins burned, and she grew wetter and wetter between her thighs. At the slightest touch of his fingers, Raynare climaxed within 5 minutes. As she needed to concentrate to maintain her current form, her body arched forward as 2 black wings burst from her back, sending the boy tumbling off her with an ungraceful yelp. What the heck? You've got wings! Breathless, feeling like she was being consumed by lust itself, Raynare tried to locate him. Her vision had blurred, and her outfit felt unbearably tight on her chest. She knew her wings had torn through the white shirt and bra, but her body refused to cooperate. This is not favorable, she thought, unable to move. Enenga! She added as he flipped her around, mounting her once more. She hissed as her wings were forcibly folded, pressed against the bed. Although her vision was blurry, she could make out the smirk on his face, indicating that this wasn't his first encounter with a fallen angel's true form. Terrible news for her. Who are you? She managed between her breaths, now powerless and at his mercy for the next few minutes. If she could stall him long enough, this blunder might not be beyond redemption. You know who I am, you asked me out. Idiot, the boy responded blandly, his voice dripping with venom towards the end. Inside, he deeply resented how similar her true form looked to Akino's. The same scent, the same violet eyes. Even her hair was only shades darker than Akino's. But he had risen above personal vendettas because he wasn't a petulant child. Raynare could still be of use to him. I need you to get Azazel to me. Her purple eyes widened. How did you? Whose side are you on? He squeezed his hands around her neck, and Raynare writhed in a mixture of pain and Aeon shit. Like that, did you? Issei monotoned. She even shared the same fetish with Akino. What was it with fallen angels and covert masochism? Not that he was complaining, just wondering. Not that he was complaining. He was merely curious. He wasn't placing any blame on Akino or her cousin for introducing him to the joys of sadism. There was a certain satisfaction in watching someone or something writhe beneath him. Perhaps he had become a bad person over the years, all thanks to his inability to be with his own wives. The bitterness and yearning had likely rendered him celibate because he felt nothing during this encounter with the alluring Raynare or her divine backside, which Vala would probably admire for a few seconds. Then again, this was Raynare, so Issei hoped his lack of sexual arousal was due to the current circumstances, and not a reflection of him. Rest assured, I'm not here to kill you, because I haven't killed anyone. Yet. And I'm not you. I actually have a functioning brain. The statement caused her eyes to widen by an additional millimeter. Yes, I know you might be planning to kill me, and I don't care. I'll tell you why. Because I want to meet your boss, and you're going to help me with that. You won't betray me to other fallen angels because you know I'm too valuable to be summarily killed. And should your boss discover that you've disposed of his prized asset, he'll likely cast you aside somewhere else. Realization slowly began to settle amidst Raynare's racing thoughts. It was impossible this pervert had outsmarted her from the very beginning. So are we good? This is your biggest chance, you know, if you want to get Azazel's attention. His tone suggested that he knew more than she had initially suspected. Despite this humiliating situation, his words contained undeniable truths. Meekly, Raynare nodded in uncomfortable silence. Issei grinned. It was all going according to plan. Excellent. Now call him and inform him that we're meeting here. He's probably lurking around this place anyway. With that, he got off her and settled on the edge of the bed, placing one leg over the other's knee, seemingly unfazed by Raynare's alluring thighs or the sticky fluid that was slowly trickling down. Lady Penemew? It's Raynare. Someone. She paused to let her breathing a bit more steady. Someone wants to meet Lord Azazel. Tell her it's urgent, and that whiskey tastes like oil. Raynare paused, before continuing. He said it's urgent and whiskey tastes like oil. He even knew Penemew and the secret code to bypass any background check? Just who on earth was this boy? And how did he keep a calm face and outacted her own role of a fool? Now waiting, Issei hopped off the mattress and took a seat on the couch not far from the bed, putting one leg on top of the other's knee, unbothered by Raynare's luscious thighs or the transparent liquid that was slowly dripping down. You're in for a wild ride, Raynare, he informed her, realizing that he might have altered her destiny, either for better or for worse. Buckle up your seatbelt or strap-on, whichever protective device you prefer. Break. Before long, the Governor-General materialized in the room with a burst of black feathers, scattering them across the floor before they dematerialized. Show off, Issei muttered out of habit, a hint of a smirk playing on his lips. He was relieved to see his teacher and mentor once again, with the same black hair and tacky yellow bangs, and his unmistakable burgundy outfit. Lord Azazel. Raynare jumped out of the bed, standing straight, now dressed in her customary revealing outfit that left little to the imagination. She couldn't help but feel a tinge of frustration that the mysterious boy hadn't spared a single glance or comment on her appearance, but her focus had never been on him anyway. It was always Azazel who mattered to her. Unfortunately, she had never seemed to matter much to him. Azazel's 12 wings retracted as he addressed Issei straight. So hi to Issei, I have to say this isn't the way or place I'd expect to have my first meeting with you, he chuckled wryly. Can't say I expected you to ever contact me first, either. You do seem to pack a lot of surprises. Surprises, sure, but none that you wouldn't like, Issei replied, still seated. But let's cut to the chase. I want to talk to you about something she is planning to do. She intends to capture an exiled nun with a sacred gear and take her twilight healing for herself. Essentially, it's a death sentence for the poor girl. If you doubt my words, feel free to verify with the mastermind herself. That's so. Raynare's eyes widened in fear, and Azazel's gaze turned piercing as he focused on her. Tell me that he's lying, Raynare. Raynare swallowed hard, unable to meet Azazel's gaze. Lying had always come naturally to her, but she knew better than to deceive Lord Azazel. How had this boy unearthed her plans? Asia Argento hadn't even arrived yet. She was probably somewhere mid-flight over China, and she had taken great pains to ensure that none of her underlings mentioned the nun's name. It's all been done for you, my lord. Her voice wavered. Now pardon me here, but how does acting out of my order translate to that? I have enough troubles as it is. I don't need you adding more to the pile, Azazel seethed, gritting his teeth in a rare display of his anger. First Kokobile had rebelled and now this? So? Where is the girl now? Asia Argento, correct? The one I told you to bring back to me safely? Raynare stammered. She should be on her way by tomorrow afternoon. And here comes my proposition, Issei interjected. Asia must stay with the devil. He wasn't going to let her be Azazel's guinea pig. You will convince the devils overseeing this town to take her in as a goodwill. A gesture of peace. Rias Gremery is in desperate need of servants, which explains why she's been eyeballing me for a while, Both Raynare and Azazel stared at him, taken aback by his audacious demand and his depth of knowledge. Raynare was the first to express her disbelief. You know the devils? A bit. Issei shrugged. That's impossible. Raynare pointed out. He's never made contact with any of the devils. She's right. A very good spy, aren't you? But I'm also not telling a lie. Azazel studied Issei intently, scrutinizing his facial features, eyes, lips, and even the faintest twitch of a muscle. Yet he found nothing to suggest deceit. And why would I want to do that? Azazel questioned further, his curiosity piqued. Are you with the devil, boy? Issei responded calmly. First, because the devils will treat her as one of their own far better than you ever will, Mr. Techno-Wizard. He noticed a flicker of surprise cross Azazel's face, not from the insult but from the unexpected moniker. And yes, I am on their side, as well as yours, the angels, and the entire supernatural world's side that seeks peace. But we can delve into that later, Issei continued, his patience wearing thin, a side effect of his altered sanity. In exchange for her, I'll let you experiment on this. A vibrant crimson glow enveloped his left arm, revealing a red, fingerless gauntlet as it gradually faded into view. At first, Issei seemed a tad puzzled, but then he realized the reason behind the appearance of the twice critical. He was still weak as shit. Damn, it's still this, huh? Issei muttered, a hint of disappointment in his voice. However, the simple fact that he had summoned his sacred gear with ease and demonstrated its existence was enough to leave the fallen angels surprised. Azazel's grin widened at Issei's frankness. Well, isn't this fascinating? I've been toying with the idea of running some tests on twice critical. Issei chuckled, not missing a beat. Yeah, you're itching to mass-produce them, right? Azazel blinked, caught off guard. You're dropping quite a few bombshells here, hi to Issei. Are you sure that's a wise move? Of course it is, Issei said without hesitation. I trust you, and I know you will trust me. Azazel leaned back, musing. It's not clear if that's arrogance, ignorance, or a testament to the bond we've forged through years of camaraderie. Either you're some sort of all-knowing deity, or this isn't your first rodeo. Issei grinned playfully, pointing finger guns at Azazel. See? You've got it figured out. I'm from the future, which is technically my past. I'm here to change it because it sucked. The revelation brought a dawning realization to both Azazel and Raynare. It was a mind-bending concept, but it explained Issei's uncanny knowledge. And FYI, I have Draig, not this lousy thing. Issei knocked on the sacred gear in question, displaying his preference. I just need some time to buff up, and I'll be peachy. Draig? Raynare repeated, slowly grasping the gravity of her situation. Killing him would have been disastrous, especially if he was a Longinus possessor. Lord Azazel would have been furious. The boosted gear, you say? Dragon booster? Azazel whispered, and Issei nodded as his gauntlet vanished. Well, I'll be damned. I'm legally inclined to never say no to that kind of generous offer. Issei nodded, that's right. But there's more to it. I need you to take care of Freed, Asia Argento's escort. That insane priest is working for Kokabile. Raynare couldn't contain her surprise and curiosity. How did you? Just how much do you know? Issei remained cryptic yet firm. More than enough. And I'm also keeping enough secrets to ensure none of you try to eliminate me. Changing the future too drastically could have dire consequences. You understand what I mean, right? Azazel picked up the breadcrumbs. You want us to keep this between us? Issei affirmed, his gaze unwavering. Yes. I can trust you completely because I know you're not foolish, and you understand the potential butterfly effects I might create. Plus, I can assist you in helping that burly man mend his broken family. Azazel's thoughts immediately gravitated toward one name, Barakiel. Barakiel had been a shattered man ever since learning of his daughter's affiliation with the Gremry heiress. If this boy had the power to rebuild that fractured relationship, Azazel was more than willing to support him. Barakiel deserved another chance at being a father. Azazel's curiosity couldn't be contained any longer. Just what did I do in the future to earn this much trust from the Red Dragon Emperor? Everything you've said seems to check out. I don't sense any signs of deception from you, and it's clear you're not strong enough to master your desires. Issei chuckled, acknowledging Azazel's astute observation. You've fallen angels and your sin sonar. And as for trust, have you heard of Trihexa? The beast, yes. At this point, nothing he said could surprise him as Azazel assumed he knew everything. He probably knew of his taste in women. What about it? Issei's expression turned grave. Let's just say something really bad is on the horizon next year. Something very, very bad. The revival of the apocalyptic beast, all orchestrated by a particularly nasty evil man. At this point, I think they're still going by the Cow's Brigade, but eventually, Rizavim will take the helm, and his reason for it is as moronic as devils are supposed to be evil. Azazel froze, the implications of Issei's words sinking in. The Cow's Brigade was no longer just a rumor, it was a threat that needed immediate attention. Perhaps it was time to send Vala on a different mission. Seek out the Cow's Brigade instead of pursuing Kokabile. Yes, that would be very bad indeed, but I don't think you telling me this will be of any help. We're at white peace with the devils, and if I just send them a message implying the descendant of Lucifer is planning to bring the end times himself, none of them will ever believe me, regardless of my impeccable natural charisma. Issei couldn't help but roll his eyes at the diplomatic dance of it all. Well, I've got a plan to sweeten the deal for the devils. I'll use my status as the red dragon thingy, flaunt it a bit, and make them eager to shake hands with you. Azazel raised an eyebrow, intrigued by Issei's audacity. You're quite confident in your ability to master that Longinus. Issei's gaze remained unyielding. Confidence is my middle name, right after dangerous. I know I can do it, and when I can, I do. Azazel nodded slowly, seemingly willing to give Issei the benefit of the doubt. All right, tell me more about Trihexa. Why is preventing its unsealing your endgame? Issei's expression grew grimmer as he delved into the grim details. Trihexa can't be unsealed. When the seal broke, it took nearly all the leaders of the three major factions, along with gods from different pantheons, to prevent it from devouring everything we hold dear, like our favorite foods and sexual activities. Curiosity gripped Azazel as he pressed for more details. But what exactly happened? Did we manage to defeat that thing? Unfortunately, no. You all bought time by sealing yourselves, joining forces with Ajuka, Michael, and even the Nordic pantheon, tossing Trihexa into another dimension, a desperate gambit to isolate it from the world. That was your last-ditch effort. Issei's face showed genuine sorrow as he continued. It took Vala and me 3 years to find where the heck you guys were in the gap. 3 years to reach you and try to help. By the time we got there, Surzex was the only one left. We couldn't save him. No one could save him. Honestly, I don't even know what kept him alive, probably his desire to protect everyone. He died moments after we arrived. The memory weighed heavily on Issei, a reminder of his failure as a hero. It was a painful memory, one that had set the stage for the countless trials he'd face in the future. Abandoning his own family was a choice many labeled as selfish, but to him, the true selfishness lay in expecting him to bear the burden of their weakness. So, our first priority is stopping rise of him, and above all, preventing the return of Trihexa, Issei concluded. I see you know about Vala too, huh? Azazel muttered, a hand under his chin, deep in thought. And you came here because everything was a complete mess? That's the gist of it, Issei huffed. There's way too much shit I had to take care of that I didn't even get the time to think. The beast ate many gods, Azazel. Gods. And without them around, guess who had to take care of the shit they're supposed to handle? Azazel smiled, leaning to the velvety red wallpaper. Unwanted responsibilities. They're a bitch, aren't they? Issei couldn't hold back a snort of agreement. Pain? Understatement of the century. It devoured my personal life, missed the birth of my sons 3 times, and my daughters twice. When I finally met them, they were already mastering the art of walking. Every time they saw me, they stared like I was some strange, mythical creature, and they'd clutch their mother as if I were a living enigma. A surge of anger flickered in his eyes as he vented his frustration. I didn't save the world 1,000 times so my children don't recognize me. He ground his teeth, his lips curling with a mixture of disgust and regret. How can I even call myself a man at that point, just a marionette? Those problems were the strings I kept cutting, but for every one I cut 5 more latched on. Every damn time. If that goes on, I'll eventually reach a point where one day I'd stop putting out the fires and just sit there and watch the world burn. Millions or billions will curse my name and forget everything I've given up for them. Then my wives would grow to question and likely hate me for it, and my children would have to grow up learning their father did nothing while countless die. Issei's eyes blazed with brown anger for a brief moment, but he then took a deep breath, exhaling slowly. Fortunately, I never reached that point, and that's why I'm here now, so I don't have to teeter on the brink anymore. Azazel was left momentarily speechless, the weight of Issei's words sinking in. Those experiences were all too real, and he knew it. He decided to employ his usual approach, humor, in the hope of lightening the mood and finding common ground. You've been through quite a lot, haven't you? It's rather bizarre to see you as a boy when your mental age is probably what? That of a world-weary Great War veteran. Issei couldn't help but snicker, finding humor in his own challenging past. Despite his bitterness, he knew he didn't have to be perpetually grumpy. More or less. You see, Azazel? I'm just an exhausted guy who wants a good night's sleep, surrounded by exceptionally pretty girls with exceptional bodies. Azazel chuckled heartily, his laughter echoing with warmth. Those shoulders must be stiff from carrying the entire world, huh? Need a massage? I'm sure Raynare here won't mind. Raynare wouldn't argue, not like she could either, but despite his sad story, and despite he wasn't lying, she still wasn't completely sure if this wasn't just one convincing act. Maybe because he had tricked her earlier, and she just didn't want to believe him. She felt like a child, and it angered her that she was acting like a child, but she couldn't help herself. Thanks, but no thanks, he replied flatly. The blunt rejection stung Raynare this time. I don't stick my dick in chicks who want to bite my dick off. Ha! Azazel laughed heartily with his chest. Very well, Hayadu. I'll pitch in as I can. Let's try and reshape the world so you won't bitch about it, yeah? Issei allowed a grin. Yeah. Sorry for bitchin'. Had to let it out else I'd explode. Understandable, Azazel reassured him. But can I ask for some insights into what Kokabille is up to right now? I'll help, but on my terms, Issei stipulated. You can make requests, not orders. I'm not obligated to agree, but I'll explain my reasons if I refuse. In exchange, you can experiment with my long anus, longinus. Just don't even think about getting close to my rear end. Azazel chuckled. Sure thing. Whatever you say, Dragon Emperor. Or should I say Securudii? Issei pulled a face at the mention of titles. Ugh, no please. Just call me Issei or Issei, like a regular person. Stop giving titles to folks. Titles make me cringe. Azazel raised an eyebrow teasingly. You're quite temperamental, aren't you? Look, Issei let out a sigh, his irritation fading, replaced by a worn-out resignation. Just call me Issei. Or Hayadu. I've had enough of titles. All right. Hayadu it is. Azazel sniggered. He could only imagine what this man inside a boy had gone through to be so grouchy. Not being able to watch his own kids grow up repeatedly was probably it. This guy made Barakil's issues look like a joke. I assume you want to be left to your own devices so you can enjoy your life, yes? If so, I promise to only mass to tamper with your sacred gear not more than once per week. I'll do it when I feel like it, Issei replied. While Azazel was an old friend, they were still reacquainting themselves, and Issei wanted to keep some control over his schedule. I'll be quite occupied in the coming weeks, so it won't be this month. Today's Thursday, so Saturday? Azazel burst into laughter. Am I? I'll clear my entire schedule for the day. Great, because I'm planning to start giving all my body parts to Draig. Wait, are you sure? Draig had to interrupt. You won't be seen as human. Rather, you will turn into a dragon. I know what I'm doing, Drakey, Issei retorted internally. I'll do it piece by piece, not my entire body all at once, you dip. Ah, I see. That's understandable, Draig conceded. You can do that? Azazel asked, intrigued by the idea. Sacrifice one part to gain power? Yes. Just give me a day to activate the boosted gear, I'll meditate or some shit. Azazel contemplated his options. This plan was too well constructed to be a scam, and even if it were, he couldn't help but respect the effort put into it. Still, he couldn't rule out the possibility of treachery, and he knew he'd have to deal with Issei if he discovered any deception. On the other hand, the opportunity to test his theories on a god-killer class Longinus was too tantalizing to pass up. Azazel grinned as he considered the possibilities. All right. Saturday it is, and then I'll leave you be for the rest of the month. He nodded, staring at Raynare, whose brain had short-circuited for a while. Now, what do you want done to her? Raynare's heart raced as she was suddenly thrust into the conversation. And my lord? Issei considered her for a moment. She heard our entire conversation, and some things are best kept secret. Do you trust her? No. Want me to dispose of her? Raynare's world seemed to crumble at the suggestion. What? She stammered, her voice trembling. Cruel as it was, Issei knew this was part of Azazel's ruse. Issei was quick to clarify his intentions, smoothly adhering to Azazel's scheme. Now don't say that, he told Azazel. Give her another chance. It's not as if she's murdered the nun or me. Besides, she could be your best bet as a double agent. Kokabille likely won't suspect her true allegiance. She's an excellent actress. You think? One eyebrow was raised. Azazel considered this suggestion and ultimately agreed. Very well then. What do you have in mind for her, in detail, other than her role as my spy? Rather than her, Fried is the one who needs to be dealt with. He's caused too many problems for what he's worth, Issei explained, recalling Fried's role in Kokabille's plan to steal the Excaliburs. And since he's a priest, the devils aren't allowed to attack him first. Fine. You can count on me. I'll handle that mad dog. Raynare said, eager to prove her worth to Azazel. What else? Before you do, you gotta make sure Asia's safe. Don't let him use her as a bargaining chip. Worse, he'll probably kill her if he finds out he's being duped. Azazel acknowledged this revised plan. Ah, right. That's a valid point. If he's aligned with Kokabeel, he'll likely be cautious around my people. In that case, we'll need to adjust our strategy. Raynare, he turned to address her, since you initiated this, I want you to be the one to put an end to it. Don't mess this up, understand? Raynare straightened herself, her wings visibly stiffening. Why yes. My lord! She responded with newfound determination. That's the spirit, Azazel commended with a smirk, instantly making her melt. Kiss ass, Issei thought to himself, rolling his eyes. Despite the situation, he couldn't help but reflect on his own past, when he had been the same kind of shookisser to Rias. But at least he found Rias' rear end preferable to the old crow. Alright, secure the sister first, and then I'll put on a show for the devils in town. Sounds good? Azazel proposed. Issei mulled it over before nodding with a sly grin. I'll join in on the theatrics. I've got a knack for drama. Do you plan to spill the beans about your time-traveling escapades to them? Just thought I should be in the loop if you do. Nah, not now. Not soon. Timing is key, and we're still miles away from the right moment. If I start blabbering about the future now, I'll be signing up for devil duty, and trust me, I'm not into that 9-to-5 demon gig. And as for the holier-than-thou angels, well, they can have their halo-waving fun without me. Raynare couldn't help but smirk at Issei's irreverent take on it, and Azazel cracked a smile in response. But here's the deal, Issei continued, Rias Gremory will likely try to recruit me, and she probably will if I end up as a crispy critter in the next few days before Saturday. Before Saturday? Yeah, you see, I'll still be weak enough for her evil pieces to work their charm on me, Issei explained. What was your piece by the by? Rook, 8 pawns, replied Issei. All which mutated at some point in the future, but I'm not planning to wait that long. Thus your gamble with your own body, Azazel nodded, confirming his hypothesis. So, do you need some backup until then? Or you're too manly for that sort of stuff? Absolutely, Issei admitted with a shrug. Pride left the building a long time ago. I just want to rewrite a few plot twists. You see, Raynare over here, he gestured playfully to her, originally gave me a one-way ticket to the afterlife after our date, which led to my reincarnation as a devil. I'd like to avoid that rerun. Azazel skimmed at the foiled murderer. I can trust you to not do that, can I, Raynare? Oh, of course. Not a chance. The governor nodded dully, facing the human boy again, his expression thoughtful. Now, most of the town belongs to the devils, but that didn't stop Raynare from approaching you. I'd rather we steer clear of any unnecessary skirmishes. Issei shrugged. I've had a few run-ins with some fallen angels in the past, but that was when I was already a devil. Not sure if they'll try to stir the pot again. Azazel leaned in, curiosity gleaming in his eyes. Recall any of their names? Issei scratched his head in contemplation. Names, their name is what's-his-face guy with fedora, Issei decided, Warner with her big bosoms, and that yellow-haired brat in goth dress. I think that's all? Donasek, Warner, and Middle, they're all under my command, Raynare muttered with a mix of irritation. I'll tell them I'll flay them alive if they touch your hair. Better? Muy bien, Issei hummed. Must be frustrating for the fallen angel for suddenly turning into his protector. Welp. Her fault for shoving a light spear on his stomach. What else here, Asia, Freed, Raynare, Kokabeel? He felt like he was forgetting something. Riser. Yes. Handling the flamey peacock would be a challenge, especially since he had no interest in becoming Ria's slave, nor did he intend to ever participate in her raiding game, or any games for that matter. Confronting the young phoenix not as a devil would be interesting, to say the least. He first needed Rias to look at him for help. Not that difficult. Give her a few more days, and she'd likely have Kiba asked him to come to the ORC. He could adjust his approach then, once it did take place. At least, this was his temporary plan for now. With the list of concerns laid out, Issei felt like he was finally getting a handle on things. That's the summary for this month. Kokabeel might decide to drop by within the next month, but don't hold your breath. That so? Anything else you're keeping to yourself? He briefly considered sharing information about the Excaliburs but decided against it, knowing the pivotal role they played in the 3 major factions' peace treaty. Changing that might not work in Azazel's favor when it came to convening the summit. Son of a bitch, the fate of the world relied on him still. Look, I'm changing a lot of stuff here already, you understand, right? Azazel nodded with a grin. Absolutely. We'll be working double time to tie up those loose ends. And, just for good measure, if any fallen angel tries to take a shot at you for any reason, just drop my name. Tell them you're rolling with Azazel, and that should make them think twice, even if they're on Kokabeel's payroll. You don't need to tell me that, Issei said. I'll just have her around. Raynare tilted her head. What do you mean? Securing Asia should be a cakewalk for you, Issei began. Once that's settled, you'll stay with me as my girlfriend. Raynare's initial horror shifted to understanding as she grasped the potential advantages of the arrangement. You're thinking of using me to keep in contact with Lord Azazel, right? That, and the devils won't dare to touch you when you're by my side. It's a golden opportunity to spy on them and report back to me. Plus, you can roam their territory without a care in the world. Feels good, right? Raynare couldn't deny that the idea intrigued her, especially the prospect of vexing Rias Gremory and the other devils. Azazel raised a valid concern. But won't that raise suspicions about you? They're already aware of Raynare's presence no matter what form she takes. That's the point. I want the devils to notice me, Issei said. I need a valid alibi. I need to give them a reason to call me out one day, so I can slowly settle in instead of bursting through their door yammering me big strong dragon. Worship me, you devils. Trust me, they'll start questioning me sooner or later if Raynare keeps sticking around. After all, devils do love their interrogations. He couldn't help but think about Sona Citri, a formidable devil known for her shrewdness. Luckily, he didn't have to interfere much with her mojo, as she and her peerage were more than capable of handling their own affairs. Issei had no intention of becoming Sona's lapdog. She already had Saji as her loyal follower. Not that she'd ever allow him to sit on her lap. Sucks to be him. But maybe he could nudge him this time. Nudge him a bit to two other persons who he knew would fall head over heels to that Gensura boy. So you admit it? You want to help our enemies? They're not enemies, he corrected her, effectively shutting her down. Our white peace should mean something. Otherwise, they would have had you killed for trespassing on their land. You're not as smart as you think you are. Raynare lowered her head in shame. Yes, Lord Azazel, my apologies, Issei smirked. It was kind of funny seeing Raynare acting like a kicked puppy. He almost felt bad for her until he reminded himself that he was facing his killer. Look, Issei said as he got up, ready to leave. At the end of the day, I'm in it for myself. I'm a selfish prick, but that's what makes me predictable and why you can trust me. The future I want requires the three factions to bury the hatchet and move on like adults. Everything I do will gravitate towards that goal. It's not something I want to mess with, and I've messed with a lot of shit and been ed by it in return. That I can tell. Azazel let out a soft laugh, seeing the uncanny resemblance between this 18-year-old boy and one of his lab assistants who had aged into the hundreds due to the stress of their work. In a way, it was sad to know that the world Issei came from had placed so much reliance on him, reshaping his worldview from a wide-eyed idealist into a jaded man whose hopes had been crushed. Azazel could sympathize more with people like Issei, those who had been broken by their experiences, rather than those who always looked at the bright side of things. It made him wonder if the optimists were just blinding themselves or had truly never experienced the harsh realities of the world. But Azazel could sympathize better with that kind of people. Broken kind of people, rather than kids who always looked at the bright side of things. Good for them, but he oftentimes wondered if they were just blinding themselves or had been blinded to tell what was real. So what's your plan now? Azazel asked as Issei walked past him to the exit. Go home. Sleep, Issei replied with a yawn, his exhaustion evident. Maybe get a better haircut, I dunno. Mind your business, old man. Had the gall of this guy, the governor managed a chuckle despite everything. Go with him, Raynare. Make sure he gets back safely. He nodded toward Issei, who was already on his way out, with Raynare obediently following. In the meantime, I'll explore ways to help boost your strength gain. Issei paused, turning back to address Azazel. Yeah, I can work with that. Just no pills, alright? Had some bad experiences with those antidepressants. They simply refused to work. Azazel reserved his question for a more appropriate time, nodding. No pills. K. Great. Awesome. Issei's grin turned mischievous as he prepared to depart with Raynare in tow. Alright then. Let's go, Yuma-chan. Time to introduce you to my parents, and I just know you're gonna love them. Ting. Raynare couldn't help but protest. What? How is that necessary? Because the devils need to buy the idea of you being my girlfriend, duh. So obviously I'm gonna flaunt you all day tomorrow in school, and you'll be waiting for me because you're love-struck with the loser you got yourself stuck with. Azazel smirked. Raynare muttered under her breath, exasperated. Really, she couldn't deny her bad luck. She owed Issei for sparing her from a meaningless death at the hands of the person she had once idolized. It was a humiliation that would haunt her, but now she was trapped, and snared by this cunning human. Damn him. Damn this whole thing. Damn her idolization. And damn her for being so stubborn in trying to impress someone who had never looked at her. And damn this human for tricking her and being completely immune to her charm and body. And damn him for knowing her weakest spot and making her feel like heaven. And damn him for making her want to have that experience again. As Issei and the begrudging Raynare made their way out the door, with Raynare now appearing as someone of Issei's age, Azazel suddenly realized that he had forgotten to ask a rather crucial question. How did Issei get here in the first place? It was yet another item on the long list of things he wanted to ask, but Azazel figured that the boy deserved a break. Hopefully, Issei could find a way to shape a more peaceful future, a future that Azazel himself deeply desired. The revelation Issei had shared had reignited his determination. In his future, they had worked together, even if it led to unsatisfactory result that molded Issei to the disillusioned man trapped in a boy's body. Still, it meant that the peace he sought was achieved at some point before. It was not beyond his reach. Faith was not something Azazel expected to possess, having been tossed away by the big heavenly man himself because Azazel pointed out some humans were hot thus should be banged, but he did have faith in Issei's words. Nobody could change their personality so drastically in just a day, and that if there was anyone who wanted and capable of completely reshaping their own future, it should be someone cynical, though not necessarily pessimistic. The fine line between the two was significant. Pessimists often became nervous wrecks or deeply depressed due to their experiences of pain and hardship. Cynics, on the other hand, were typically abrasive and grouchy individuals who found it hard to derive from things. They tended to put a negative spin on everything, especially when it came to other people and their motivations. They were the kind of people who carefully assessed all the ugly possibilities and understood how the world operated. They knew where the pieces were before they were even set in motion. Hayadu Issei Azazel hoped he hadn't misplaced his faith in this cynical, yet potentially world-changing young man. The rest of the day unfolded quite smoothly. While Issei had preferred to always be self-reliant, never one to lean on others, not even his own abilities, but when facing the prospect of being blown to smithereens by a low-ranking fallen angel, or even a lowly imp, some adjustments to your survival strategy were in order. So, securing Azazel as an ally had become the linchpin that could unlock a plethora of potential paths. The man had deep pockets, an extensive network of connections, a 3-digit IQ, a reasonable dose of pragmatism, and a knack for seizing opportunities. But what truly set him apart was his stark sensibility compared to the other two options on the table. Surzex would reel him into the hot mess that was the devil's world of politics. A spindly, life-encroaching web complete with flesh-eating spiders, always hungry to suck a brave soul who thought they could make a change without wanting to eliminate the opposition. Worse yet, this was no puzzle that brute force could solve. It took Rias 2 entire years as the Lady of House Gremory to pat down the fires, the tiny embers of possible uprisings. Even then, recovery had been painfully sluggish. Finding individuals willing to dive headfirst into hell's political quagmire, and do whatever it took was like hunting for a needle in a haystack that happened to be overflowing with used syringes. As for Michael, well, the issue lay not with the ever-smiling angel himself, but with his angelic brethren who always sought to carve out a moral high ground for themselves. Angels were all about peace, yes, but conversing with them often felt like dealing with a robot whose sole purpose was to preach the good book. Heavenly Father this, Heavenly Father that. Issei couldn't help but ponder how many of them would turn their pristine white wings to a shade of pitch black if they discovered their Heavenly Father had, quite literally, bitten the celestial dust. To be fair, the angels had suffered the most losses. First, they were ravaged by the evil dragons, and then, as if that weren't enough, they lost their most powerful archangel, Michael. It was a double whammy that had left their faith and determination in tatters. Their newfound pacifism was nearly monk-like in its intensity. If not for the combined efforts of Griselda and Dulio, the beacon of Christianity might have been twiddling their angelic thumbs while the worlds around them descended into chaos. However, all those calamities had yet to unfold. As long as Issei didn't march down the exact path he had trodden before, he was confident that his grasp of the situation and Azazel's cunning would ensure the nightmares remained confined to his past. The man with the distinctive goatee had become the key in his quest to reshape the world, hence the reason why he needed him. Yet, a cryptic message from Ophis had echoed in his mind before his soul's journey. You can never be certain of events that have not yet unfurled. You aren't the only one forging a different path, and the future won't be solely dictated by your actions. Despite her penchant for mysticism, Ophis had delivered a crystal-clear message. Keep an eye out for unexpected twists and turns, those events he believed should never come to pass. After all, people weren't mere automatons. They were prone to making choices that could lead down unexpected avenues. And if those individuals held enough sway, they might force him into further adjustments. Returning to this particular juncture in time had been a akin to sitting at a global poker table in a pitch-black room. Each player had been dealt a unique hand, and any one of them had the potential to pull a wild card out of their sleeves and had all the possibility to potentially him in the ass. Well, at least he could be grateful they weren't playing strip poker. As long as the catastrophic entity known as Trihexa remained unsummoned, Issei had an unshakable belief that he could tackle any curveball this world hurled at him. He had conquered it once, and he could damn well do it again, even without relying on the boosted gear. He wasn't entirely sure whether this outlook stemmed from desperation, wishful thinking, or a coping mechanism for the fact that he had left his family behind in the future. Though he was young and currently devoid of power, Issei was not as stupid. Still was, but at least not as badly. He retained the wealth of experiences from his past, experiences that had honed his mind to a razor's edge. He was determined to reach his goals, and anyone who stood in his way could either join him or prepare to be broken. Now, the time had come to assess whether his fabricated girlfriend required any breaking. It was too early to make a final judgment, and quite frankly, it seemed like a bit of a waste. Raynare hadn't displayed any murderous intent thus far, which, for her, was a step in the right direction. During their entire walk back to his house, Raynare had forcibly restrained her curiosity, suppressing her urge to ask questions by observing Issei's every move. Not a word had escaped his lips, and if she didn't know any better, she might have assumed he had nothing on his mind except air, or perhaps thoughts of her. Or perhaps he was just painfully socially awkward. However, this new incarnation of Issei was no longer the same person she had been assigned to watch over. There was no telling what he might be pondering or calculating, and frankly, Raynare didn't trust him enough to be concerned. Her duty, as assigned by Azazel, was to guard him. She didn't need to believe in him, she simply had to perform her job. And perform her job she did, with aplomb. His parents loved her. They showered her with compliments, praising her looks, her manners, and expressing their astonishment that their son had managed to find such a high-quality girlfriend, given their extremely low expectations. Understandably so, their son was a loser whose thoughts often navigated the gutters of indecency. It might as well be part of the gutter itself. Issei, of course, played the part of the bumbling fool just as excellently. He scratched the back of his head awkwardly, before laughing with his father at a dirty joke his mother scowled at, who then profusely apologized to her. He even came up with an entire story of his own, that it was a love at first sight. As nauseating as the charade was, Raynare rolled with it. This was all for the sake of pleasing Lord Azazel, her chance to make him proud. It was all she desired. Well, Gorwi, his father, chimed in, glancing at the clock. Wouldn't you know it? It's that time when we conveniently head to the shopping district to pick up some groceries for dinner. That leaves our cozy abode in the capable hands of our young lovebirds until evening, doesn't it? Issei's mother, Miki Hayato, caught on to the blatant message. Is it? Oh dear me, how could I have possibly forgotten? Even for Issei himself, who appeared to be in disbelief that his own parents had essentially given them a green light for some romantic escapades, the situation was painfully obvious. At least Raynare didn't need to maintain her Yuma form any longer. Back in her revealing attire, her enticing figure on full display but her wings carefully concealed within her back, Raynare cast a casual glance around Issei's bedroom, where he had brought her. It appeared to be the typical room of a Japanese teenage boy. She was almost surprised there weren't posters of skimpily clad girls adorning the walls. Her initial assumption had been that he was still harboring intentions of ing her, but she quickly realized how simplistic that idea was. So, can I go now? She inquired, folding her hands across her chest, while Issei proceeded to discard his white uniform, carelessly tossing it onto the floor. Or do I still have to play nice? Stay, he replied instantly. More of a command than a plea. I need you. The last remark was entirely unnecessary, designed to elicit a cringe, and it succeeded admirably. The bastard even snorted and let out a laugh, clearly intended to make her feel uncomfortable, which it did. I need to make my own preparations, Hayato, she retorted, her exasperation evident in her tone. There are other matters I must attend to, such as instructing my underlings not to harass you on sight. Or possibly ending your life. Don't worry about em. I'm no devil, shouldn't just whack me in the streets. Don't want to be one either. She regarded him with a mix of prejudiced suspicion and genuine curiosity. If what you say is true, why didn't you simply align yourself with them? Aren't you risking changing the future too drastically? Because I refuse to be tethered to anyone in my pursuit of my goals, no matter how hot they are, he explained, sitting on the edge of his bed. Moreover, if I were to retrace my steps, it would take an eternity to regain all of my cool powers. Have you observed the devils in this town? Have you seen them enjoying a day off? Have you witnessed the mountains of paperwork on Ria's desk? Raynare couldn't help but make a face, the most neutral expression she had shown him thus far. Point taken. It's a never-ending grind if I attach myself to any of them, or to any of the factions, Issei continued. Far too inefficient and excessively stressful. Man just wants to be free in it? Then why not join the Grigori? We're more flexible with our schedules. Doesn't matter how we do it as long as we get the job done. Unlike those devils and their damn formalities. In that case, she countered. She didn't trust him, but Azazel was keen about him. Why not consider joining the Grigori? We're more flexible with our schedules. Doesn't matter how we do it as long as we get the job done. Unlike those devils and their damn formalities, because then I'd be trapped in Azazel's lab, or it would be harder for me to curry favor with the other two factions, Issei replied, maintaining his intense gaze. Look, I'm not joining any of those three factions, or any other fan clubs, pantheons, or whatever. I'm playing Switzerland in World War II, but instead of just sitting there doing nothing, I want them to gather around a campfire and sing Kumbaya. Raynare raised her hands in a gesture of surrender. It was just a suggestion. Noted, Issei said. By the way, what makes you so attracted to Azazel's ass? Excuse me? Raynare retorted, taken aback. I mean, it's pretty obvious you're doing all this for him, not for me or the entire world, Issei explained with a shrug. So, I'm genuinely curious. You're not the type to throw yourself on the ground for someone unless there's something in it for you. Raynare hesitated before replying, obviously there is. Not something I feel like sharing with you. Now Issei raised his palms. Okay. Just curious, is all. Besides, aren't you from the future? Can't you just tell? Can't. You kicked the bucket early, mate, Issei said as if he was describing the sun's surface was probably hot. What? Raynare felt like she had been hit by a speeding truck. How? I'm only telling you this because I think that's no longer your fate, at least if you don't do stupid shit, which I'm pretty certain you won't. And why is that? Because you want to suck Azazel's balls, Issei bluntly stated. And you're not an idiot. You are, however, easily swayed by your emotions, and that's actually why you met your untimely end. Raynare kept her gaze locked onto him. Alright, then explain how I died. The first domino was that you killed me, Issei revealed, causing Raynare's eyes to widen in shock. It became evident that he wasn't referring to her failed attempt but rather her successful one. I killed you? Yeah. I mean, I was pretty dumb. It set off a chain of events, the most crucial one being Rias turning me into her devil. Nothing much happened back then, other than me experiencing my cruelest heartbreak. Boo-hoo-hoo, woe was me. At least I can find comfort knowing I wasn't the only one being tricked at some point, Raynare bitterly remarked. Good for you, Issei replied with a heavy dose of bitter sarcasm. But then your other colossal mistake, the one that sealed your fate, was planning to take Asia's sacred gear for yourself. And guess what? You succeeded. But in my noble quest for vengeance, I struck you down, and Rias landed the finishing blow, turning you into a pile of black soot on the old church's marble floor. So you're telling me that I succeeded in all my plans, and I still ended up dead, Raynare lamented. No, Issei corrected, I'm telling you that your plan was stupid, and that's why you died. What? Raynare growled. How is that stupid when it clearly worked? Hey bro, you died. Any plan that ends with you dying for nothing is a stupid plan in my book, she cursed. Like you can do any better. I'm not you, I don't share your dreams, Issei snorted. But you should have known the devils are miles stronger than you. Rias Pod one-shot all your friends and you as well. She has a Keno while you have some mafia boss wannabe, a real estate agent with unbelievable cleavage, and a lowly and gothic dress. But no, you're just too full of yourself to consider the devils were even on your level. Raynare bit her lip, a maelstrom of emotions churning within her. Issei's words stung, and the bitter pill of truth was hard to swallow. Here's what I would have done if I were in your shoes, Issei continued, his tone laced with a hint of condescension. First off, no frolicking with the devils. Leave their turf be. Never give them a reason to come knocking on my door. I'd do my own thing. Keep the sister's arrival a secret instead of parading her around like a peacock, and hand her over to Azazel. Twilight healing is great, but if you have to off her to get it, that's a blow to Azazel's reputation. It'd be a clean operation, no mess, no conflicts with the devils, no need for a cover-up, and I'd probably get a significant promotion because sacred gears turn Azazel into a giddy schoolgirl. Catch my drift? Raynare maintained her silence this time, her face a battleground of defeat and shame. But that ship sailed, and it's not anchoring back, Issei continued, unwavering. In a way, I just handed you a get-out-of-jail-free card, Raynare. Mother Raynare muttered under her breath, shaking her head in disbelief. Alright, you've made your point. You're the clever one, the composed one. Bravo. Want me to fetch your slippers while you're at it? At what? Putting you to shame? Nah, I'm not that petty. Maybe I am, if I'm like a character written by some deadbeat authors who value feelings over thinking. I was pissed at you for killing me and breaking my innocent, pure, maiden heart. He paused, drawing out the melodramatic phrase for effect, clearly enjoying her discomfort. Raynare couldn't help but gag internally at his theatrics. But that's old news, deader than the dead horse people like to beat around for some reason, Issei continued dismissively. I've got 100 other morons on my shit list, much bigger fish to fry. Raynare sighed, realizing that her attempts at getting a rise out of him weren't working. So what are you saying then? Is this your way of demanding that I grovel at your feet? Are you telling me all this just to massage your ego because you can forgive me? Issei's casual smile began to fade, replaced by a stern expression. Don't mistake this for pity, he replied coldly. My feelings don't matter, and neither do yours. Only the end goal matters. Am I supposed to feel grateful for this? Raynare couldn't help but feel a chill down her spine as Issei's anger, controlled and focused, replaced his earlier nonchalance. It was a level of control she hadn't expected, one she didn't have. His anger was cold, direct. Pinpoint. And he was in control of it, not the other way around. And sitting alongside his anger was a scathing disappointment. I really thought you were more mature, Issei continued, his words sharp as a blade. Seems like I was wrong. Go ahead, keep acting like a child. I won't hold it against you. Children are free to express their emotions without consequence. She pursed her lips, throwing her eyes off his. Being told off by a boy, give her a break. Think, Raynare, think. Issei's voice remained calm, but the anger in it was evident. The tranquil fury finally sowed into his voice slapped her with each word. Use your brain, not your feelings. Emotions bring you nothing but trouble. Angry because you didn't get what you wanted? Upset because you feel humiliated? Offended because I'm speaking this way? Well, tough luck. No one cares. Your sob story, your past, how you got here, nobody gives a damn. They need a reason to care about who you are now before they'll even consider who you were back then. Raynare stood there, grappling with her emotions, her hands still clenched into fists. It was infuriating to be on the receiving end of a lecture from a high school student, especially one who had manipulated her so masterfully and left her pride in tatters. Yet, begrudgingly, she couldn't deny the truth in his words. Gritting her teeth, Raynare swallowed her pride and muttered, hell, can't believe I'm losing to a high schooler. Issei smirked faintly. See? There's that competitive mindset again. You need to drop that. Easy for you to say, Raynare grumbled. Winning and losing, it's all in your head, Issei replied. This world is like a game, but you don't have to be a player. When other people's problems become your problems, you've already lost. The key is to make your problems become other people's problems. Raynare scowled, trying to digest his words. Like what you did back at the hotel? Issei shook his head. No, that was different. I needed help, Azazel offered it, and now we're allies. We control the board, and you're the only player left. You're the one being tested here. Not me. Not Freed. Not Asia. You. And you're not doing too well so far. I'm giving you a nudge, but even if you mess this up, it won't matter to me or Azazel because we don't rely on your success. You're expendable. This is your chance to increase your value, Raynare. First step, get Asia. Raynare muttered an expletive under her breath. You smug bastard, Issei shrugged. Call it what you want, but you know it's true. Losing you won't affect us. So, what's your choice? Keep acting tough or accept it and improve? She sighed, her glare defeated. Her silence spoke volumes, and Issei knew she had accepted her position. Good, Issei nodded, satisfied with the outcome. He had put her in her place and made her realize her value, or lack thereof. It was necessary to prevent her from becoming an obstacle in his plans. An unnecessary setback. He then rolled to lay on his bed, groaning a sigh. Here we go, thought Raynare, nearly exploding into another fit of rage. Maybe he just was a pervert. He still was, but that was just a part of him. I am going to take a nap, and while I do, you make sure nobody comes in through that door. What, you expect me to watch you sleep? Raynare asked with annoyance. It won't take long. 5 minutes, tops, Issei replied with a hint of amusement. And wake me up if you see me doing something weird. Something weird? You'll know, Issei said, closing his eyes. He hated this bit, but since he didn't have a milligram of any sparkly magical powers to shoot big lasers, he had to make do. He steadied his breathing as Raynare watched with slight confusion, nonetheless keeping her silence, and leaning against the door. Within 10 seconds he passed out. The world shifted from darkness to light, and Issei couldn't help but grumble, "God damn it, leave the light on, won't you? HMMH?" The giant Welsh dragon, Draig, who had been slumbering in the dried-up lake at the center of the meadow, stirred awake. The ground rumbled as he yawned, his emerald eyes locking onto Issei. "Oh. It's you. Oh great, you were sleeping through my entire spiel." Issei couldn't resist a snarky remark. "Well, look who finally decided to grace us with his presence. Rise and shine, lil' Drakey. I've got a special gift for you, my left hand, in mint condition." Draig took a moment to register the reason for his host's rude awakening. Wait. Right now? No, next year, when it's a collector's item. Of course, right now. Let's get on with it. I'm trading my left hand for a smidgen of your oh-so-mighty powers. He inched closer to Issei, studying him with groggy curiosity. All right. But you do realize the cost, right? Issei quirked an eyebrow. Catch? Nah, I'm just doing it for the fashionable accessory. Of course, I know there's a catch. What's a little limb lost between friends? Draig pondered Issei's audacity for a moment before sighing dramatically. Very well, you crazy human. Then at least tell me, why are you doing this? Is it all about power? Issei leaned in, his expression turning thoughtful. Well, power is like ice cream, Draig. A little bit is nice, but too much, and you'll get brain freeze. I just need some leverage, you know, in case I find myself in a tight spot or if trouble comes knocking. It's like having an extra umbrella on a rainy day. Draig blinked once, digesting his answer. You don't seem all that attracted to power. Goddamn right I'm not, the man huffed. Trust me, I've had my fill of power trips. Your brand of power attracts all sorts of show-offs with flashy abilities who think I'm here for a showdown. It got old faster than a melted popsicle on a summer day. The dragon tilted his head, his massive eyes reflecting a mix of understanding and sympathy. But what alternatives do I truly have? You'd rather be a glorified power bank? Issei quipped, raising an eyebrow at Draig's earlier remark. Draig reeled his neck backward, slightly taken aback. Well, of course not. I've been stuck here for nearly 1,000 years, changing hosts but never truly escaping. My role has been to help them defeat the White One. I know, Issei said with a weak smile. He didn't want to see Draig like this. Didn't want to hear that again from the dragon. It's a cruel cycle for you, eh? Hermé, Draig admitted, tucking his colossal head between his mighty, scaly arms. After hearing your words earlier today, I've been contemplating my existence, the souls I've ended, and whether redemption is even attainable. I thought that perhaps offering my strength to you, in the hopes of a brighter tomorrow, might be a path to redemption. But then, I arrived and declared I didn't need your power, right? Issei finished for him. Aye, Draig affirmed, his gargantuan form adopting an almost puppy-like demeanor. How a dragon could resemble a kicked puppy was beyond him. Unlike his host, Draig had no need to conceal his emotions, making his vulnerability more evident. It wasn't rare to find him mulling or being down about particular events. Don't worry, Draig, Issei said, stepping forward to pat Draig's colossal nose. I don't want power, but I do need it. You'll have your chances. Remember the promise I made to you in the future? I promise you to find a way to remove your seal. What? His emerald eyes brightened, filled with surprise as Draig rocketed to sit down. The tremor he caused threw Issei off balance as he stumbled to his back. Is it even possible? Draig exclaimed, his voice a blend of hope and disbelief. Hey, easy down, will you? He grumbled, though he couldn't help but smile at Draig's excitement. I don't have all the answers yet, but it's possible. God slapped that seal on you, and it's a tough one. So, it'll take time before we even get the ball rolling. But if I can gather the brainpower of Azazel, Ajuka, Michael, and a certain genius Valkyrie in the future, I'm pretty damn sure they can figure it out. It'll be a slow process, and I'll need your help along the way, but I don't break promises. Draig blinked in astonishment, his colossal eyes nearly sparkling with hope. Are you certain? You're willing to give up the chance to become the most powerful being in existence? Sure, I'm sure, Issei nodded resolutely. You goddamn right I don't want that. I've been at the top of the power food chain before, and it's overrated. I owe the future to you, my scaly friend. You've already met my conditions, looking back at your past and pledging to be better. So here's my promise to you, a bit earlier than expected. It won't happen overnight, but trust me, I hate seeing you all gloomy. Chin up, you big lizard. Let's work on breaking you free from this damn prison. Draig, once again, was at a complete loss on what to say. Dragons shouldn't cry. Dragons never cry. But he didn't know if dragons were ever treated with such a kindness that he felt like a hole had been punched through his chest. Oh boy. Here comes the waterwork. And no? Draig sniffled, lying poorly as he looked up at the bright skies. The sleepiness hasn't yet left my eyes. Issei rolled his eyes, a mix of happiness and frustration dancing in his gaze. Sure thing, Drakey. Let's not get carried away just yet. I still need you to munch on my arm and share some of that fantastic power. Of course, replied the Crimson Dragon, still gazing at the endless azure sky. Just give me a moment. I can sense the sleepiness fading away. All right, as Issei face planted into the grassy meadow, emotions swirled within him. He was content, yet he also grappled with a sense of emptiness. His joy wasn't as potent as it used to be. It felt more like a muted sense of gladness. Over the years, his heart had become weathered and worn, like a dragon's tough hide. He'd grown desensitized to the world, with happiness fleeting, sadness barely leaving a mark, and satisfaction nothing more than a laugh that lasted 5 seconds tops. He could still smile and enjoy himself, just not with the same fervor as before. The old world had changed him, damaged him in ways he couldn't fully repair. However, Issei remained resolute to spare his friend from ever experiencing the same hollowness he now carried within his heart. Break. The school bell's melodious chime couldn't have arrived at a better time for Issei. Today marked Asia's anticipated arrival, and with a bit of luck, she'd be under Azazel's care. Of course, Issei hoped Raynare was taking a deliberate and methodical approach to this matter. Waiting for the bell was like watching paint dry, and he couldn't even indulge in that, as he was seated right in the middle of the classroom instead of the classic protagonist's spot by the window. He sighed, wishing he could look cool while gazing outside. Actually, she should just text him now that he thought of it. So Issei took out his cell phone, and realized he was still living in the early 20s with this outdated flip phone model. Not that humans' development in technology made any difference to his old soul-sucking job of whacking unreasonably evil mo. Hayada. But before he could lament his lack of window view or send Raynare an email, a shout came from a few seats to his right. Issei's attention shifted to the source of the noise, and there she was, a brunette with a demeanor that could curdle milk, arms firmly crossed beneath her rather impressive bosom. Sup, Murayama? He felt a bit conflicted for staring at her chest in order to keep his mask, but since it was necessary, no taboo was too much for him. Don't you sup me and act like nothing happened yesterday and eyes are up here, Hayadu. He reluctantly tore his gaze away from her chest and met her stern olive eyes. What a surprise! She quickly looked away, her cheeks adorned with a faint blush. Issei couldn't help but think, seriously? After 2 years of her despising him, it took only a day for her to forget it all and act friendly. He felt like he had stumbled into a rom-com anime with the fastest character development on record. But no. He had no time nor place for ordinary humans. He had 2 slots, and those were reserved by his 2 idiots. He needed to let her down. Gently. What? He asked, causing her to flinch as she remembered why she had approached him. If you're here for a rematch, sorry to disappoint, but I won't be battling you again unless you're up for a duel at my house. In his bedroom, chimed a voice from his left shoulder, courtesy of the bald Matsuda. On his bed, added Motohama from his right. And let the panties hit the... There was a moment of uneasy silence before both Issei and the trio yelled in unison, FLOOR. The trio burst into raucous laughter, seemingly impervious to the disapproving looks and disgusted scoffs from their classmates. They were simply relishing the moment, and nothing could dampen their spirits. The poor brunette captain went beet red as she opened her mouth, her lips quivering. He could see the words jumping around on her lips. What's your game plan with our main man here, Mayamura? Matsuda quipped, playfully patting Issei's shoulder. He's not yours to torment anymore, you know. He's a hero, Motohama chimed in, casually resting his elbow on Issei's head, the rest of his hand forming a precarious perch atop Issei's unruly nest of hair. Handle with care. Murayama shot them both a scornful look. It's Murayama, you baldy, and I'm not here to start a brawl with any of you, unless you're looking for a reason besides. Hayada faced his punishment, while the rest of you made a hasty retreat. It might be our day off, but the Kendo girls never forget. Are you secretly an elephant? Matsuda quipped, earning himself a glare from Murayama. He quickly took a step back, raising his hands in a sign of surrender. Yikes. Tempers, big scary, sorry I see. Motohama also backed away in fear of being butchered by a dozen wooden swords. She's all yours. Wow. I didn't realize I'm friends with wussies. You handled her just fine yesterday. You've got this. Matsuda called out as he and Motohama made a hasty exit, their laughter echoing in the corridor. In their wake, one girl let out a startled shriek as they playfully pretended to pounce on her. Ah, so carefree and so out of s. They might have been unpopular with the school's populace, but they never complained or spoke ill of their comrades. Whenever they were around, it was hard to feel down. Without realizing it, a tranquil smile graced his face as he gazed out the door they had exited through. His smile seemed to have an unexpected effect on a certain young lady, who, for the first time in her life, felt a strange sensation stirring within her, one she couldn't quite decipher and initially mistook for a stomachache. So, Issei turned his attention back to Murayama, who seemed unusually tense. Got something on your mind? Me, perhaps? It's nothing much, Anno? She lied. Her gaze darted nervously from side to side, a finger idly twirling a strand of her brown hair before tucking it behind her ear. Her heart pounded in her chest as though she'd just completed a rigorous training session. Her face felt slightly flushed, and she couldn't quite pinpoint why. This was bad news for him. Worse for her. He had no desire to break hearts, but it didn't mean he wouldn't do it if necessary. I was just wondering if the rumors are true. Finally. A card he'd forgotten he possessed. Oh, you mean my new girlfriend? He exclaimed with the enthusiasm of a boy who'd just snagged his first girlfriend. Murayama's demeanor crumbled before him. Her nervous smile gradually faded into a frown, then transformed into a tight-lipped expression. Well, never mind then. I thought it might have been another baseless rumor someone made up. Haha. Good for you, Hayada. Maybe now you can keep your eyes on her and only her, right? Yup, he maintained his exaggerated smile, watching her wrestle with her emotions. Definitely. I didn't see that coming, to be honest, she mumbled aloud. I thought if there's anyone who could tolerate your perversion, it would be Irina. What? Issei blinked. What? What she referred to couldn't be just a random girl named Irina, it had to be that Irina. And still that made no sense to him as to why she knew her this soon. Come again? Murayama blinked several times, peering at him through a veil of newfound pain she didn't even know she had. Irina? Your childhood friend? All the girls were surprised, you know, because you two were so close but never seemed to take it to the next level. Right, Issei blinked owlishly, rubbing his eyes then nose. Sniffling. Sobering. Thinking he was drunk. Irina, huh? Yes? Are you feeling okay, Hayadu? Murayama asked, beginning to worry that she'd accidentally knocked some sense out of him the other day. Something was definitely off here. Either things were very right, and he was expecting them to be wrong, or vice versa. Yahoo! Ikken! Just as Issei began to contemplate the unusual turn of events, another girl entered his classroom. Her cheerful and slightly annoying tone, her characteristic chestnut twintails, the same bright smile, and an overall janky girl vibe that was unmistakable. She was skipping her way to his table, sporting the same radiant smile she always reserved for him, even though deep down, he knew she longed for a real husband. But that wasn't what was important right now, and I'm here to tell you that and escort you there since I'm so nice. Come on. Quit looking at me like that. Shido, Irina was here. Prez wants to see you, and she was a devil. Hey, Ikken! Where are you scampering off to? Toilet? Fancy joining me? EW, no! The girl with sunrise-like energy exclaimed. Just don't take too long. It's not every day someone gets invited to our club, and indeed, it wasn't every day that he got to see her either. He hadn't expected this meeting to happen so soon. He was completely unprepared. At least her smile remained the same. The mystery of how an angel devoted to Gabriel had ended up as a devil worried him. Her family was religious, not Satanists, and most importantly, they were good people. Secondly, what about Zenobia? And Kiba? Was Kiba even still around, or had Irina somehow switched places with him? Draig, fill me in on everything about Irina. The girl? Isn't she your childhood friend? You know her better than I'll ever do. Yes, she's my childhood friend, but she shouldn't be appearing this early. This isn't exactly the same timeline I recall. So, tell me what you know about her. HRM, that's unsettling to answer your question. She's orphaned. Orphan? A dynamite this soon? By Gabriel's heavenly, what else had been changed? Draig trailed off, perturbed by his host's extreme reaction. That's an unsettling twist. Yeah, shit. No need to hit the panic button just yet. Let's keep going. Continue. Heh. Your ability to remain calm at the unexpected is reassuring, partner. But I digress. I spend my time mostly in slumber, so my knowledge of her won't be perfect, Draig reminded him. From what I've gathered, she was a childhood friend. She went overseas for a while, and when she returned, she was an orphan. Your family even took her in for a bit before she moved into the dorm with the devils. That's about all I know, partner. Balls Irina? Orphaned? Why her? But Issei knew better than to keep firing questions into the abyss. Alright, that's not expected, but that shouldn't change things too much. I can work with this, thanks bud. Anytime. Just give me a shout when you need me, partner. If you were still your old self, I'd have to babysit you and give you sage advice constantly, but 6 years of experience seem to have made you wiser than I am now. Now. Don't beat yourself up, Draig. You're just being outshone by a future version of you, who's had the advantage of becoming much wiser. And far more jaded, depressed even. He might as well be called the Jaded Dragon Emperor, though Issei decided to keep that thought to himself. And much more arrogant too. I'm actually surprised you're introspective so quickly. Do you suppose I've changed as well by this time warp? You're definitely less of a pain in the ass, so probably yes. The thing is, I've got no grip on how significant those changes are. I hate being in the dark, but I hate overthinking while doing nothing even more so. Onwards to the devils, I suppose. I'm sure you'll be alright. Yeah? Enough of the sentimental speeches. Issei heard a hearty, rumbling chuckle that sounded like rocks shifting as Draig severed their mental connection. After he washed his face, emerging from the bathroom stall, Issei meticulously played out his facade, casually pushing down the handle to conclude his fake bathroom session. One perk he relished about being in a formerly all-girls school was the impeccable cleanliness of the restrooms. Even the boys' facilities were immaculate and void of any unpleasant odors, all thanks to the judicious use of magic, of course. But now was not the time for contemplating toilet maintenance. As he exited the bathroom, he spotted Irina leaning against the wall not far from the entrance. Although her past appeared to have undergone some alterations, she still wore that familiar troubled expression when she thought no one was watching. But he always noticed her subtle nuances, even after not seeing each other for a year or more. Discovering that she had silently cried herself to sleep because the Egyptian gods had required his help in capturing escaped souls from the Styx when they were supposed to be cherishing their rare moments together was like driving another 5-inch nail into his chest. He had vowed to protect her smile, and he couldn't let that slip through his fingers again. Yo! Issei greeted her, causing her to flinch slightly. What's with the long face? Are you jealous that I'll be meeting some hot chicks? Nah hee. Rather than taking his bait, Irina gazed at him, and asked, Do you love her? What? Issei blinked. Your new girlfriend, she clarified, her face a blend of concern and oddly, not jealousy but rather sadness. Are you in love with her? Issei blinked, taken aback. Well, I mean, she did confess to me, and she's pretty, so not love yet, but I tend to like people who like me. Yeah, is that so? Her smile returned, and this time, it seemed genuine. Just confirming that he wasn't in love with Raynare seemed to lift her spirits. Hopefully, it stayed that way for the right reasons. Okay then. You like who you like, Iken, good for you. Anyway, let's go. Irina took his sleeve and practically dragged him along. The prez is waiting. Before long, Irina started to run ahead of him. A challenge, and a challenge accepted, although it was obvious she was holding back. Well, so was he. He might not have regained his full power yet, nor did he intend to use it unless absolutely necessary. But by sacrificing his left arm, he had regained some semblance of it, just enough to fend off any pesky fallen angels who weren't on Azazel's payroll. Tomorrow, when he met with Azazel, he would focus on keeping the dragonification in check. Otherwise, people might freak out when they see his hand covered in crimson scales. For now, he ran, past the irate teachers shouting about no running in the hallways, past Genshiro Saji, who was currently occupied posting something on the bulletin board. Good, he was present, and then through the schoolyard, deeper into the old school building. By this point, it was time to pretend to be winded, so he slowed down, grabbed his knees, and bent over. Alright, you're not bad. Still hunched over, he took a deep breath and let out a loud exhale. We'll call it a draw. A draw? Irina exclaimed, still full of energy. Yeah, right. You were eating my dust, Iken. Maybe better luck next time. You had a false start. Bleh. The race started when I said so. She snickered, wiping a bead of sweat from her chin with the hem of her school uniform, inadvertently revealing her toned stomach. The definition in her abs was faint but more pronounced than what she had back then. It seemed she had been putting in more effort at this age than she did in the future, now the past. Issei couldn't help but flash a grin. Nice abs. It should be known that this comment was genuinely heartfelt. It came straight from the depths of his slumbering perversion, which was clearly alive and well, even if he hadn't had many chances to let it run wild lately. Irina didn't blush, but she did give him a toothy grin. Perv, let me touch it. No, oh, come on. Just a little stroke. No. Irina giggled, protecting her stomach with her hands and playfully swinging her head, using her long twin tail as a whip that smacked him in the face. Smack. Gwei, ask your girlfriend for that. You could be my girlfriend too, problem solved, Issei quipped, half joking but with a hint of genuine interest. Why settle for one when I could have both? For a moment, her smile softened, and it almost seemed like she was hiding something, protecting him from some unseen truth. Then her toothy grin returned, accompanied by a cheerful tee-hee. Dream on, self-proclaimed harem king wannabe. Well. How the turntables. The self-proclaiming king now proclaimed someone as self-proclaimer. Probably the biggest twist so far. Ha! Just you wait. I'll prove to the world that I can satisfy 2 or more girls all at once. He boldly declared, even though he had, in fact, done that multiple times. There were even sex orgies held in his name. Both sexually and affectionately. Now Irina began to blush. Only due to his lack of shame. What are you saying, you idiot? Perverted idiot. Perv. Eki say. Ero Hayada, do those insults mean anything to me? Issei smirked. Ha. I'm immune to them. They're not insults, they're my badge of honor. Shidu. Irina stuck out her tongue, and Issei quickly grabbed it between his fingers out of habit. Curse their silly adult games. Before she could be surprised by his reflex, he smoothly played it cool by making a shit-eating grin. Ha! Got your tongue, mlem? Bleh. You taste like sweat, yeah? Can I taste what you'll taste like? Irina froze, her face turning a shade of red that could only be described as comical. If there were fumes shooting out of her ears, it wouldn't have been surprising. Whatever. Pervert. Get away from me, you deviant. I am Purei. Their sprint continued, with Issei chasing Irina through the corridors and up the stairs. As they reached the upper floor, Issei's eyes fell upon a striking figure standing outside the occult research clubroom, gazing out of the window. Long, flowing black hair was tied into a ponytail with a large white ribbon, and her crimson eyes shimmered like smoldering embers. Her figure was nothing short of enchanting, capable of making hourglasses second-guess their shape, and Issei's thoughts predictably ventured into his classic perverted territory before he could rein them in. Wait. White ribbon? Since when did Akino start wearing contacts? The answer was, never. Because that ponytail was not Akino's, despite the uncanny similarity of their shape and form. Ah. Suzaku Paizen. We didn't keep you long, did we, Suzaku? Issei's confusion deepened, and he quickly initiated his disguise, focusing intently on Suzaku's appearance. While they carried on their conversation, Issei held a mental conference with himself. Not at all. I just came here for some fresh air. Well, I got the boy. Is Prez inside? And he thought he was immune to surprise after Irina's arrival. Suzaku. Here? Now? How? Humstviophsaz. Draig popped in. I'm guessing this is another unexpected occurrence. I've been hit by 2 curveballs in a day, Draig, Issei grumbled, keeping his eyes at her childbearing hips now. Whatever that was supposed to mean, I know her, and I also know she isn't supposed to be here. She's Tobio's companion supposedly. This is getting worrying. I can't offer much assistance in this situation, partner. You've never crossed paths with any of the devils before, except for the orphan, Irina. She has a name, Draig. Don't be rude. Right. Not my intention. I meant Irina. The pig-tailed girl, the dragon corrected himself. As I was saying, I won't be of much help. That's fine. I'm just shocked, is all, at least so far. Only the minor actors have been popping up sooner than the old script. His girls were top priorities for him. But to say they all make an equal impact on his previous world would be telling himself a lie. But big or small, no matter their role, he loved them all the same. But now I'm no longer sure of any of their backstories. What do you plan to do? I'll spill the beans to Azazel about everything, Issei replied without missing a beat. He needs to know about this, and I can't have him thinking I was embroidering the truth about certain aspects when, in reality, not everything is following the same script. Understood. Any hunches about the cause of these twists? Ophis mentioned something related to this. I initially assumed that my actions in the past would reshape the future, not that the mere act of time travel would cause certain events to swerve off the beaten path. Ikken! What on earth are you staring at, you leech? Come here and go inside. Issei jolted back to the present when Irina's voice pulled him out of his trance. He must have appeared like a drooling schoolboy, which suited him just fine. Pretending to shake his head as if to dispel his delusions, he staggered toward the clubroom, briefly giving Suzaku a mischievous, perverted grin before entering. Where Akino would have giggled, Suzaku responded with a stern glare, which was reassuring. Their personalities seemed to be holding up relatively well. The clubroom remained as Issei remembered it. The windows were open unless it was swelteringly hot outside, and the air conditioning was off. Rias had called it a small effort to save the Earth's dying atmosphere. The furniture, the wallpapers, the paneled wooden flooring, everything was exactly the same, but one glaring difference awaited him, and he had mentally prepared himself for it. The short white-haired girl, enjoying her rice ball on the green Victorian couch, caught his eye with her bright amber gaze. "Please stop staring. It's rude," she chided. "Oh, right. Sorry," Issei stammered, quietly spoken, yet her words were as pinpointed as a bee's sting. That was Kaneko, all right. Except Kaneko wasn't supposed to have that much of a chest. She should have been as flat as a board, providing balance to the otherwise chaotic spectrum of sizes in the Occult Research Club. She was meant to bring harmony, not further disrupt the scale. That said, good for her. He missed the times he was able to tease her for her chest. Nonetheless, he couldn't help but think that it was good for her. He would miss the times he could tease her about her chest. Kaneko had also grown a bit taller. This was how she would look if she kept her Chiron mode active, with her white, fluffy ears discreetly tucked away. Something must have happened to her in the past. Something likely related to Kuroka. His best guess was that the trouble her sister had stirred up had either been resolved or had never occurred. But where was Kuroka? Wo Issei muttered, feigning amazement, and using the opportunity to discreetly scan the room. The crimson-haired heiress wasn't here yet, but he could hear the sound of a running shower coming from the bathroom in the far corner. His gaze shifted to Akino, who was currently preparing Rias' usual Earl Grey tea. Devils loved their tea, but Issei wasn't a fan. It was too sweet for his taste, and he felt pretentious because he couldn't discern the difference between cheap supermarket tea and the expensive, hand-picked variety. All in all, Issei didn't mind tea, but he preferred water, a refreshing drink that was good for both body and mind, and should be much more accessible. He continued to survey the room, mentally counting the heads. There should be one more, a blond and handsome young man who was ambiguously sort of gay. Yudo Kiba was conspicuously absent. A troubling suspicion began to creep into Issei's mind. If it turned out to be true, it could complicate things, but he reassured himself that he could handle it, or at least that's what he told himself. "Well, don't just stand there like an idiot." Irina barked behind him, playfully kicking his butt. "Go take a seat. Prez is showering right now. You should probably freshen up too, Irina," Suzaku suggested in her soft-spoken manner as she walked past, settling on the same couch as Kaneko, leaving an empty spot in the middle, likely reserved for Rias. Feigning nervousness, Issei scratched his head, fidgeted with his fingers, tapped his toes, and swayed back and forth like a jittery schoolboy surrounded by beautiful women. He knew he had to stay attentive. He noticed Kaneko and Suzaku shooting suspicious glances at his left arm, confirming his suspicion that they had sensed a change in him and were biding their time. Kaneko, with her newfound growth and ability to read the flow of life force, could easily detect that his left hand was no longer human. Suzaku, having a sacred beast that shared her name, was an expert at sensing supernatural presences. But none of this mattered to him, as he was prepared for this discovery. The sooner they realized he was aware of them, the better. However, he couldn't reveal the truth right now. It would only make them more suspicious and less likely to trust him, hindering his goal of gaining their cooperation with Azazel. If he allowed surprises like these to throw him into a panic, then the world would have been in ruins. Issei remained calm. He knew what he needed to do, confirm some key facts with Azazel and ensure that the major players in the Trihexa situation, Azazel, Surzex, Michael, Odin, and Rizavim, remained in their roles and personalities. As long as they did, he was on the right track. Steam billowed out from the stained glass door of the bathroom, announcing Rias Gremery's exit from her shower. Unabashed as ever, especially when she knew how to use her stunning body to her advantage, she strutted out with only a towel wrapped around her enviable curves. Her radiant crimson hair was tied up in a bun to keep it dry, exposing her graceful neck and smooth back. She was as breathtakingly beautiful as he remembered. BBB but. Rias-senpai. Irina stammered in shock, using the proper honorific as she panicked behind him. Close your eyes, Aiken. No, Issei responded with a lecherous grin. No, I don't think I will. It's fine. Relax, Shidu, with a confident chuckle and an equally confident stride, Rias said calmly. Much to Irina's petulant frustration. With her grace and even steps, Rias approached the table, and took a seat between Suzaku and Kaneko. Still covered by only one white fluffy towel, a fact that didn't escape Issei's attention. Issei flashed his trademark grin, causing Kaneko to cast a disgusted look in his direction. He noticed a small triumphant smile on Rias' lips, a sign that she had bought into his act. However, this particular act required minimal effort. Rias was stunning, and while she could be a bit prudish, so were most of the devils he had encountered, with only a select few exceptions. She might not have been his first love, but he was her first love, and that was what mattered most to him. Afternoon, Hayato-kun, Rias greeted him with an unassuming smile, casually crossing one slender leg over the other, revealing a generous portion of her upper thighs. The old Issei might have been sporting a noticeable reaction by now, but the current Issei required more than visual stimulation. Nonetheless, he pretended to be captivated by her enticing thighs, keeping his gaze fixed on them for several seconds until Irina smacked him in the back of his head. Ow! He winced, feeling the actual pain. Good afternoon, Girimo, Gyurmori, Rias chuckled lightly. You can call me Rias, sweet. Issei pumped his fist in silent celebration of his minor victory. The devils were fully convinced by his act of feigned low intellect and ape-like behavior. Then, you can call me Issei. Yeah. Afternoon, Rias-senpai. You have a nice club here. It's very European. Why, thank you, Rias replied. Have you been to Europe before, Issei-kun? Nope, but I've seen some pictures. My mother really wants to go there sometime. It's a beautiful continent, Rias said. But I still think Japan's natural beauty and culture are equally beautiful, if not more so, with its unique blend of tradition and modernity. Of course you'd say that. Damn Japanophile. Yeah, your thighs are very beautiful. I'd like to go there sometimes, he mumbled, inwardly reveling in the girl's reactions to his remarks. Even Rias seemed momentarily caught off guard. Akino, as always, found humor in his candid statement, and giggled as she set steaming cups of tea on the rather large coffee table before quietly retreating from the conversation. Ow. 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 Issei's enjoyment was about as fleeting as a snowflake in a sauna, thanks to Irina's relentless head poking. You got some guts, don't you, Ikin? But let's not stray from the matter at hand, Rias interjected, giving a nod of appreciation to Irina for her perfectly timed distraction. Issei-kun, I'm simply curious about this new girlfriend of yours. Would you be so kind as to indulge me with a few answers? Depends. I mean, why do you want to know? We were actually thinking of paying a visit to her school, Rias explained, and I thought having some background information might prove quite useful. So you dragged me here just to be your personal Wikipedia? Issei muttered, and Rias visibly paused, holding her breath. Then Issei deflated with a sigh. Man, I thought my popular phase was finally here. Rias let out an audible sigh of relief, and the collective tension in the room eased up. It was a classic case of people underestimating the intelligence of those around them, but that was somewhat understandable when an entire school practically worshipped them, reinforcing their already inflated egos. For they say that girls love a good sense of humor, Akino chimed in with a playful smile. You really think so, Akino-senpai? Issei shot back, casting an impish glance at her. Is that your subtle way of telling me I have a shot with you? I wonder. She didn't say you were funny. Ouch, Issei replied, wincing at Kaneko's sharp retort. He couldn't help but wonder if she'd been using her newly developed assets to sharpen her tongue. Those soft, grinding stones Kuroka would undoubtedly be proud of. Rias skillfully navigated the conversation back to its original course. Now, back to my initial question. May I proceed with my inquiries? Sure, senpai. I probably don't know much since, well, we kinda just met yesterday, feigning cluelessness with a strong alibi. Check. But what do you want to know? A fair bit, and here it comes. The interrogation. Too bad for her. Issei was no stranger to dancing around the truth and weaving intricate webs of deception. He never displayed defensiveness, diverted questions, or resorted to cliché phrases like to be honest to dodge inquiries. Instead, he offered up everything he believed Rias wanted to know, all while pouring on the enthusiasm for his new girlfriend to the point where it was a wonder he didn't start blushing himself. In the end, Rias gained no substantial information, except that the boy remained blissfully unaware that he was being duped by a cunning fallen angel. Break. But Issei's convincing act as the clueless guy failed to deter the curious devils from pursuing their line of inquiry. As he exited the school building, Irina managed to catch up with him, disguising her presence under the pretense of wanting to visit, while in reality, she likely intended to rummage through his place, searching for any hidden fallen angel surveillance devices or magical espionage gadgets. Great. No Azazel for the day, it seemed maybe at night then. Issei couldn't risk calling Raynare either, as it might compromise her mission to rescue Asia. She needed to tread carefully in Freed's dangerous territory. Speaking of Freed, the unhinged fallen angel was a considerable threat, even to someone like Raynare, given her current circumstances. If the rogue exorcist could match Kiba's abilities at this stage, it was a clear indicator that Raynare was treading on dangerous ground. Speaking of which, where the hell was Kiba? Kiba's sudden disappearance was another perplexing mystery. Had some divine prankster found it amusing to transform him from a vengeful devil into a full-fledged paladin of God? Did he cease to exist altogether? Did his vanishing act somehow tie in with Irina's sudden appearance in the school? Issei couldn't simply approach the devils with these questions. Azazel was his go-to for seeking answers, but his inquiries with the devils might risk revealing his extensive knowledge of their world. It was a delicate balance, though there might be a chance Kiba was still in the school, just serving under a different devil, namely Sona Citri. But if Issei asked about him, and he was never a student, and the devils knew of his name, then that would be like stepping into a landmine. Kaniko's physical growth was a puzzle as well, hinting at a dramatic shift in the Nekashu sisters' storyline. Whether this change would prove positive or negative, Issei couldn't determine yet, but he wouldn't mind an earlier encounter with Kuroka. She brought an element of fun and excitement to their otherwise brooding lives, and when her issues with Kaniko were resolved, she became twice as entertaining and twice as passionate. Irina's unexpected arrival was a surprise within a surprise, possibly signaling a spanner in the works. It was conceivable that his knowledge of the past might not be as reliable as he had hoped, but as long as key figures like Azazel, Surzex, Michael, Odin, and Rizovim remained consistent, these deviations could likely be managed. However, he did confirm Raynare's scheme was still the same. So was Freed's insanity, as confirmed by her and Azazel, and Kokabil's ongoing rebellion. Surzex and Michael seemed to have the same identity and personalities as well, and so as long as the important players retained the same roles, these unexpected changes should be nothing big to put extra worry about. However, one thing was certain: he needed to inform Azazel at the earliest opportunity. Building a relationship of trust was essential, and Issei wanted to maintain a strong bond with the governor. The fate of the peace negotiations rested squarely on Azazel's shoulders. Yo! Iken! Hey! As Issei mused over his concerns, Irina's voice broke through his thoughts, pulling him back to reality. She had caught up to him, and as usual, she couldn't resist ribbing him. Hawa! Snap out of it! What were you thinking? You went all Syria-like for 3 straight minutes. Oh, you know, Issei replied, his tone full of mock innocence. Well, I mean, the girls in your club have some seriously serious badonkers. They made me think about them seriously. Like what'll happen if I smush my head between them and sorta just go brrrr. As he pantomimed a rather enthusiastic motorboating of Invisible, Irina groaned and rolled her eyes in exasperation. Never mind, I don't want to know. You really can't get your mind out of the gutter, can you? Hell no! The gutter is my home. It's where my thoughts belong, Issei declared with a heroic flourish, placing a hand over his heart. Irina chuckled at his antics, and Issei took the opportunity to ask her a few questions about herself. By the way, when are you planning to visit my place again? He began innocently, noticing the sudden shift in her demeanor. Mom and Dad miss you, you know. I think they like you more than they like me, and maybe sometime in the future. But first, I want to be a strong, independent woman. Irina fist-pumped the air, still with her vibrant energy. What adorable creature was this? She was like an energetic spaniel, especially with how she stylized her hair and the color. Maybe even strong enough to protect you, Iken. Oh yeah? Protect me from what, exactly? Misbehaving girls? Bad girls, she said, her tone unexpectedly genuine and directed toward Raynare, revealing her true purpose as a devil, to shield him from the wicked. So this was it. This was the only hint he needed to connect the dots. Irina had become a devil to protect him, likely making a deal with Rias or the Gremry devil herself. Issei couldn't help but curse the unseen hand that had tampered with the past, causing profound changes in the lives of those he held dear. It wasn't just Irina, Suzaku, and Kaniko who had been affected. There were likely others. It was now his responsibility to set things right. If Irina had been orphaned during her travels while she mastered her holy sword, it was plausible that they fell victim to the same forces that had experimented on Kiba. But Issei didn't want to make any assumptions. He made a mental note to confirm these details with Azazel, the man who held many of the answers. I'll make it right, he swore. His resolve was firm, but now, it was steeled. Irina and Suzaku and Kaniko couldn't be the only ones whose past had changed. Those were on him. His fault. No excuse about it. Hayate Issei never made excuses. Anyone who was good at making good excuses was rarely good at doing anything else. He was good at both, but that's besides the point. He would make it right for all of them, securing their futures and setting things straight. As his phone buzzed, Issei retrieved it from his pocket, expertly flipping it open with a playful grin. He concealed the screen from Irina's prying eyes, flashing her a teasing expression that widened into a victorious smile. It was from Raynare. Asia was safe. Thanks for watching this video. If you really enjoy this video, like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification. Don't forget to support and follow the DanzyDanz for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story link in the description. See you in the next video. Goodbye.